The following is a presentation of the St. Louis Chess Club. The energy was electric at tip-off for round 5 of the Sinquefield Cup here in St. Louis. Sparks flew across the boards and underdogs flourished. Co-leader Maxime Vachier-Lagrave hoped for an easy layup, but was dunked on by Linear Dominguez, jumping him to the top of the standings. The all-star matchup of Wesley So and Fabiano Caruana fizzled as both players shot their shot, but had to settle for a draw. With 3 points apiece, the leaders hope to rebound and create some separation going into the rest day. Round 5 of scintillating chess coming up next.
Hello everyone and welcome to round 5 of the 2021 Sinquefield Cup. Here in St. Louis, there are many famous parks where the players can go to for rest and relaxation. But as we hit the midpoint of this crucial event, there will be no time to relax, as the players will have to bring their A game if they're going to try to make a move and win the tournament. To call all the action, we're going to jump to the studio with Alejandro and Yasser.
St. Louis welcomes 10 of the top players in the world to participate in its marquee tournament, the strongest event held in American soil. It's the Sinquefield Cup, the last leg of the 2021 Grand Chess Tour, and it has been a thrilling tournament. To call all of the action, I'm Grandmaster Alejandro Ramirez here with Grandmaster Yasser Seirawan.
Alejandro, a pleasure as always calling the action with you and Maurice, especially for the last 2 rounds, has been remarkable.
Usually we have a good time no matter what is going on the board, Yasser, but
wow.
The players have not given us any respite. It's been action after action.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our live coverage of round 5 of the 2021 Sinquefield Cup. As mentioned, the last 2 rounds have been some of the most memorable chess rounds I've ever commentated on, and I've just, let's hope it continues. After 4 rounds, what are the standings, Alejandro?
It was a victory, one of the 4 victories yesterday that's catapulted Linear Dominguez over Maxime Vachier-Lagrave to join fellow teammates, Olympic teammates, Fabiano Caruana and Wesley So at the top of the leader standings. You can see them there. 3 out of 4 points. Maxime himself, still on +1, is the chasing pack. 50%, we have Shakira Mamedyarov and Richard Rapport. Below them, Jeffrey Shong and Sam Shankland on -1. And a much needed win for my student, Dariusz Wiertz, who scores 1 out of 4 so far.
What an epic game it was. Congratulations to him. Life is so much better after a victory when our format.
It's a 10-player round robin, and we're back to classical chess. 90 minutes for the first 40 moves. 30 minutes for the rest of the game, and a 30-second increment all throughout. Absolutely no draw offers in this tournament. We've had games where they have to draw by eliminating every single piece off the board, except for the kings, of course.
Right.
And traditional scoring system. 1 point for a win, half for a draw, 0 points for a loss.
Our most lucrative prize fund played on American soil, $325,000 up for grabs amongst these 10 players, and our schedule, Alejandro.
Simple enough, 1 round a day, except for tomorrow. The players have that well in their minds. Tomorrow will be their first and only rest day of this event. Surely they're going to take advantage of that. And we continue after that, very simple. 1 round a day until the 26th. If there is the need to have a playoff, not for the tournament, but for the Grand Chess Tour standings, then we will have those on the 27th of August.
With so many decisive games, I don't see how we're going to get into any kinds of playoffs. But all I say is fingers crossed, let's keep it up.
And speaking of decisive games, we've had a huge amount in this tournament. To take a look at how that stands up against other events, we have Grandmaster Maurice Ashley.
Well, thank you, Alejandro. Indeed, when you see classical chess, you usually think it's going to be slow, lots of draws at the high level, not like rapid and blitz. But not in this event, which has been slash and burn chess, brutal knockouts, and some candidates for brilliancies. Starting with round one, we had 3 out of 5 games. We thought this would be an anomaly, these kind of brilliant hits. Round two, more like what we're used to. 1 out of 5 decisive games, plenty of draws. But round three said, back to the bloody fighting chess that this tournament seems to be staking out. And round 4, it was more of the same. 4 out of 5 decisive games. Our heads are spinning with all these amazing moves, brilliant shots. 12 out of 20 decisive games. That's 60%. That is completely unusual for a tournament of this level, this caliber. We just go back a few months to the first tournament on the Grand Chess Tour for 2021. 9 decisive games in 9 rounds in the Superbet event that was held in Bucharest. That's 20% out of those 45 games, 20% decisive rate. We could go back to the last Sinquefield Cup that was played in 2019. 12 decisive games. That's what we have right now. But that was done in 11 rounds, 66 games, 18%. We've got 12 already. What kind of numbers is this tournament putting up? In the last 20 years, if you go to elite players over 2,600, the average draw rate is 53%. It's much lower for over 2,750. Like these players, like many of these players in this event, the current draw rate for this tournament is 40%. This is just absolutely a wild, crazy affair. Guys, can we keep this up? It's been so exciting, so thrilling. I expect to see more contentiousness, blood on the board.
Wonderful.
For me, I think that I can go an entire tournament wishing for a round 3 like we had here at the Sinquefield Cup. But then round 4 came and said, wait a second, you get another one.
Wow. Can we do it again as we see Sam Shanklin sporting some of the Q Boutique swag that's available there? He's got the Rapid and Blitz blazer on.
And if you want to match with Sam Shanklin, QBoutiqueSTL.com will have specials for you later today. But let's take a look at the pairings for round number 5, the day before the rest day. Shakhriyar Mamedyarov with white will be trying to catch Linier Dominguez, who is on a roll in this tournament. He has 3 points in a commanding way. He did it yesterday, defeating Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. Peter Svidler will be playing against Sam Shanklin, the 8-time Russian champion, unable to find his form. Then a huge one for the standings. Wesley So will be playing against Richard Rapport. Rapport surging back after he lost to Mamedyarov, defeating Peter Svidler. But Wesley, he knows that his job is to get 3rd place in this event and clinch that Grand Chess Tour title. MVL will try to come back for his loss against Dariusz Fierz, but the young man just won his game.
Yes, he did. And Jeffrey just lost his game, is up against Fabi, and with the white pieces, that's okay, but after a loss, you get Fabi. That's not much of a reward. Let's talk about the rewards. What are they playing for, Alejandro?
$90,000 is the first prize of this tournament, and don't forget, Grand Chess Tour participants are looking at those points. 13 if you win the event outright. Only 8 is what Wesley So needs, and he's looking at a 3rd place prize, saying 8 of those points, they get me an extra $100,000 for the Grand Chess Tour title, and of course, all the prestige that comes with it.
Exactly, $50,000 in bonus money for 2nd, $25,000 in bonus money for 3rd. MVL and Fabi and Shakhriyar are all looking at that bonus money. But handsome prizes throughout, as we have a picture there, intriguing picture of Jeffrey Zhang at the board. It's got a filter on the camera, so you get that foggy look.
I think they're actually looking through a star, like a glass.
I was thinking it might have been a mask.
Oh, look at the mystery. They're looking through
I thought they were looking through a glass.
An etched doorway, I think. Yeah.
Yep.
Nice. By the way, here at the St. Louis Chess Club and Scholastic Center in the Central West End is undergoing massive renovations, and when they are completed towards the end of this year, the start of next year, this is going to be an absolutely beautiful facility. It already is, but it's expanding 200%, I want to say, probably even more.
It's an amazing amount of work that's going on. I think you'll be thrilled to see the new playing halls, the new studio. Well, we're going to be thrilled about the studio.
Yes, indeed. And there you have a picture of Richard Rapport. Now, Richard, yesterday, he played a really nice attacking game against Peter's Fiddler, essentially just kind of bullied him off the board. I want to say Peter's been having a real harsh time of it
as we get see the players starting. But I was talking to Peter about that game yesterday.
Yes.
He simply said, brain misfirings. He had a plan, and he didn't follow up. He followed through with it.
Right.
His original idea was not to take on g4, just leave that pawn alone.
Right.
Solidify his position.
Maintain that tension.
And that was the idea, and he decided last minute, take the pawn. What could happen?
And, well, what happened was f4, f5 came storming down the board and ended up checkmating his king.
We should point out that there are just a few players responsible for a lot of the decisive games in the event. Peter is responsible for 3 of them, 3 losses to him.
And Darius
is involved in 4 decisive games. He did win 1,
right?
With, again, 3 losses for him. So that, and they didn't play each other. So that's 7 decisive games between 2 players. Then you add Sam in there, who's been involved in 3 decisive games himself, with 2 losses and a win. So 3 players already account for many of the decisive games here. And that's part of the thing about the unevenness of the field.
Right.
We have players who are world championship candidate and Fabiano Caruana.
Right.
We see here, we have youngsters like Jeffrey Zhang who are trying to make a name for themselves. We have Darius, who's lower rated than most, and he's going to be hunted by everybody. You could trust Maxime is after him right now. Maxime is thinking, I lost yesterday, you're a point. You're fish food. Like, I got to kill you. You can expect that Maxime will play to the very last pawn, trying to prove something here as he tries to bounce back in this event.
There have been a number of games, guys, and jump in, please. There are a number of games that have been played in this tournament that I want to describe as simply perfect. That is to say, the winner of those games, there's absolutely nothing I could criticize. For example, Lanier's win yesterday against MVL. Lanier played perfectly. Every move from rook d2 and queen e1 and rook h6
but it
was
wasn't just that game. He
fantastic.
actually played a perfect game against Darek as well on round 1.
Right. And then I'm thinking about Darek's loss to Wesley, where Wesley plays the black side of Berlin and essentially makes not only did he not make a bad move, he didn't even make a dubious move or a questionable one.
No.
Every move was great. The level, I don't want to say perfection, the quality of the chess. So some of these games have been off the chart. I mean,
simply off the charts, yeah.
Games.
Well,
wow.
A game that seems like it will not win the Brilliancy Prize.
Already disqualified.
Whoa. Yeah?
Is this game between Wesley and Richard. Now, we do know that Wesley, with 3rd place, locks up the tournament. Locks up the Grand Chess Tour. He doesn't win the tournament, but he locks up the Grand Chess Tour and the $100,000 bonus. Right. That 100K starts to loom really large in your mind the closer and closer you get. So Wesley, it's going to be very difficult to catch him. The pursuer, by the way, 3rd place is what he needs. If Shakhriyar, who's currently at 50%, with Wesley sitting at +2, if Shakhriyar overtakes him and Wesley falls back to 4th place, that's a tall order in this tournament. Is only 5 rounds left. Right. Wesley will literally have to go through a full-scale collapse for that to happen. So it's almost over. The Grand Chess Tour title, sad to say, it's almost done after these first 4 rounds. Let's just be real.
Yep.
But the jockeying for 2nd and 3rd.
The jockeying for 2nd and 3rd is on. But I'm saying, but the point I'm making about right now is a nice Grand Chess Tour pen. I got to go upstairs and get me one of those.
What do you mean? We got a couple here.
You guys got pens?
We got pens.
I don't have a pen.
Chess Tour pens, baby.
I don't have a pen.
Yeah, baby. The cool kids get some.
Oh, man.
Goodness
that's what I'm talking about.
Right? Thank goodness for that.
Anyway.
Yes.
Wesley knows full well that if he just stays cool and doesn't do anything crazy, he may not win the Sinquefield Cup with that attitude, maybe, but he will definitely win the tour.
Exactly.
And so we'll keep an eye on as to his attitude in the positions he's playing, unless he comes up with some brilliant, crazy idea in this position, which I think most of us feel like
is dry
as ever. But I wanted to bring your attention to one game where Peter decided to play an unusual fifth move. Let's call it that. A lot of moves. There's so many fifth moves here. It's ridiculous. I mean, Bishop G5 was the main line. Bishop E2 was in play. Bishop E3 was the main line for a while. Fischer like Bishop to C4. Then his pawn pushes like G3. You could even throw in F4 if you want. Then they started playing A4. Who played Bishop D2? I think
that was Van Forest, the young Van Forest.
Van Forest played that.
Lucas.
Remember the move H4 by Ray Robson and then Wesley So. Naroditsky and the like played that.
I saw B3 recently.
B3 as well. Dang. F3, of course, you could play every move. Well, why not play Bishop D3 is what Peter played today. Certainly not a square that the bishop will appear at often. I would put this probably around the 5% level.
No, much lower.
Much lower, right? Yeah, I agree. It's got to be sub 5%.
Right.
Because of all the other lines. But Bishop D3 blocking the defense of this piece and reinforcing this pawn, but the bishop doesn't look like a great piece on the square. Sam played E5 after not too much thought, chasing the knight away and put his bishop on E6, castles, and knight C6, saying, I've got good squares for my pieces, and you don't have control over the D5 square, so at some moment, the move D5 is always going to be threatened to just open up the game for black, and he's going to have free play. So white's going to have to be careful. Let's see what Peter has in his mind to stop the very strategically desirable D5, as his piece setup is not really made to contain black's forces.
Yeah, it's fashion all over again. Why do people choose different things? Bishop D3 is hot fashion at the moment. You've seen it played over the last year several times.
Wow.
And for some reason, people are seriously looking at it like Bishop D3. The logic is pretty simple. H3 is a huge variation of the Najdorf.
Right.
People play E5, and your knight usually retreats back to E2.
Right.
People decided, okay, is the bishop on D3 really so bad that I can't put it there and develop it quickly instead of keeping it on F1? The answer, well, we don't really know. Jury's still out. White usually plays for a very quick F4. There are other ideas in the position, but you'll see an F4 relatively soon.
F4 looks very compelling. After all, this bishop on D3 can be a target for black pieces, whether it be with knight B4 or something dropping on C4. So the move F4, you get to play F5, and as we were talking about, there's a strategic battle for control over the D5 square. I would expect F4 to be a natural follow-up. By the way, is this line theoretical? Do people play this stuff, Alejandro? Bishop C5 check.
There's still very, very, very few games. Saying that something's theoretical here would be an exaggeration.
Okay.
People are just trying to play it and see how it goes, but very, very rare at the moment.
All right. Well, keep an eye on that. The game actually that caught my attention, because I play it a lot, well, these days it's Blitz, but certainly this whole knight F3, G3 approach. And I know that Fabi, funnily enough, he actually likes the Benoni from both sides. I think he prefers to the space that the Benoni brings. And after the move Bishop G2, E6.
My students call knight F3, G3, Bishop G2 the midlife crisis opening.
The midlife, it's sort of like when you don't have time to study.
Just knight F3, G3, every game.
Exactly. And it's sort of like E7, E6 is kind of an invitation for white to play C4, D5, D4, and a kind of a Benoni reverse where, well, you've already committed your pawn to E6 and stuff like that. But I like the approach that Jeffrey has taken as well, which is not so much as an invitation to have a reverse Grunfeld, but something like after, for example, knight C6, C4, we have all of these transpositions in chess, and you can end up in a Catalan. And I used to play this black side of this Catalan. I don't know if this ever became popular in your practice. I'm black, takes, queen A4, takes, knight takes D4, queen takes D4, bishop takes c6, and I like sacrificing my queen as black. Bishop d7, rook d1. Today, I actually did look at this line with an engine, and it really does favor white greatly. But at the time that I was playing this stuff, it was a lot of fun. I've got this really great light squared bishop. I do have a pawn as well as a bishop and a rook for the queen. And it's funny, if you're not careful with white, h5, h4 might surprise you.
It's still fun for a blitz game.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
It is. And again, we went from the old man's crisis opening to a reverse Grunfeld to a Catalan, and these transpositions. After the move d4, we've seen instead, to avoid that Catalan position, we've actually seen Fabi capture on d4, knight takes d4, and again, to avoid, let's say, patterns of a reverse Grunfeld like that might appear like this, we see e5 on the board, and I'm assuming knight b3 is an automatic here for white.
No, knight f3 is also a move.
Knight f3 is also a move.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's not mainline, but it's not automatic. Knight b3 certainly, knight b3 is certainly the main line.
Because after knight f3, knight c6, I've always thought of the Grunfeld as you've purposefully played the move d4 to open the bishop.
As I said, it's not the main line, but the line does continue c4, d4, e3. There's been some theoretical analysis here. I actually believe 2 of my students played this in a tournament against each other.
Right. These actually look like old games of Paul Carras. He used to play these things like a reverse Tarish, but sorry. Yeah.
There's still some theory here. Black's supposed to be okay.
Sure.
But white's not worse either. So knight f3 is a completely playable move. As you said, though, knight b3 is certainly the main line of the position.
Sure. And again, from my practice, the idea of a Grunfeld is really to kind of open up this bishop very early and put pressure on the d5 pawn. Pressure will be exerted both by bishop to g5 as well as a knight to c3. Let's keep an eye on this game. And Maurice, have you been drilling down on Peter's approach to the Najdorf?
Yes, I have. And let me just pull this position up. This is a very unusual position, let's say not popular, at least the way they played it. I hear you, Alejandro, what you're saying recently, but the online database shows that after this position, knight e2, bishop to e6, I should point out, bishop to d3 has featured in thousands of games, about 4,000 games.
Wow.
By comparison, the move bishop g5 is more like 84,000 games. So, right. and the other move, bishop e3, also in the 80,000 plus. So this move, by comparison, rare. e5 is the most popular move in this position. Sam played it pretty much instantly. Knight de2, also popular, with bishop to e6, 136 times it's featured, and then castles. And now here, most popular is bishop to e7, not putting the knight on c6 right away. This only appears, knight c6, 8 times. Bishop e7, 47 times. Getting prepared to castle, get the bishop here. One of the points is that sometimes your knight wants to be on d7 to be able to hold up this knight, so you can replace it if there's ever a bishop g5. But he played knight c6, and Peter instantly played f4. I only found 2 games in the database from this position. 2.
Wow.
Which is quite unusual. E takes f4, knight takes f4, not bishop takes, which may later run into a queen b6 check and your pawn on b2 is hanging, and knight to e5, and there's only one stem game. Gajewski, I think it's a Polish player, not the top of the rating scale, this position, and Sam has played every move instantly. Just bing, 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 banging down his moves to this position.
That's that for you.
Now Peter has played a4, which was not played in the stem game. King h1 was at this moment. So Sam now, if he had prepared this using the stem game, he's seeing this move for the very first time. a4, of course, in chess, sooner or later, your opponent's going to play a move you have never seen. Right. And you're going to be tasked with solving what to do after that. A lot of people prepare openings thinking that somehow that preparation will carry them through the whole game. That's not chess. That's not realistic. You're going to be forced to think and look at Sam pulling up his chair saying,
it's
okay,
time.
it's time to think.
By the way, I love this shot. A shout out. Whoever's upstairs without it, that's Kevin. Kevin dug in with this shot. It's just beautiful. Look at that focus of Sam Shanklin. Maurice, I hear you loud and clear. At some point, you can study all of you want, but you will be faced positions that even though you studied, you will be challenged. New ideas, different move orders, a different plan you hadn't considered, a blunder. Your opponent could blunder, and you might not have considered it in your calculations. Maybe it was a difficult refutation,
right?
But you have to do it over the board.
A second or third choice.
And the engine you're using won't show the move your opponent just played as one of the top 2, 3, 4, or 5 moves.
Yep.
Right. It just plays some move that the engine's like, what? Well, that's not what we're thinking about. And you'll say, well, the engine didn't say this move. Good luck with that. You have to solve it right now at the board. And there's Sam. He looks like he was ready to play Bishop E7, but he's a tad nervous. He will be allowing this pawn on A4 to potentially go to A5. He'll have to judge whether or not that's okay for him, whether or not that pawn on A5 is going to be a plus for white or a weakness, as it can be attacked by knight C6 if black chooses to go back with the knight. And he's hesitating. So a well-prepared player, hyper well-prepared. I always want to point this out for the fans. Not to beat yourself up, because players at the highest level hesitate over their moves as well. You see it live. The challenge that they face is very similar to the challenge you face. They might know a little bit more than you do. But still, it is never easy to play this game.
Nice. Sam's about to reach for his bishop. Just turning our attention for a moment to the Shakhriyar versus Lanier Dominguez game. Now, again, lots of points between the two players in this game. Lanier tied for first. Shaq coming off of really, really painful loss, I want to say, against the wild card, Sam Shanklin, that really dented his ambitions. And
we already have a result.
What?
Wesley So and Richard Rapport have found a way to repeat.
What?
Well, that's Wesley.
What I was worried about. That's what I was saying.
But that is Wesley So. He is the type of person that says, this is my lead in the tournament.
Right.
I'm playing one of the higher rated players.
Right.
I'm white. Let me force a draw. I don't want to burn any bridges here.
He's guaranteeing himself the Grand Chess Tour. He sees the bigger picture.
I mean,
and he's saying that we'll bring him down here to hear his thoughts. But that's my guess.
Yeah, no,
Win
he's
the tour,
just, that's his first ambition.
Line.
And I think it's
not?
easy to criticize players that do this, especially with white, but when you're basically guaranteeing yourself $100,000 by doing this,
yeah, you just have to
say, well, yeah, that's what the tournament says. This is what you need to do, right?
Right.
This tournament is not a tournament in isolation. That's the point.
Yeah.
Right? The big picture is he had to do well in the super bet in Bucharest. He did. Won Paris.
Right. Fantastic.
He did well here enough in the St. Louis Rapid
Blitz. Fourth is not bad.
Fourth is
not bad at all.
Rapid Blitz, yeah.
And now he's saying, all I need to do is come in third guaranteed. So he's seeing the bigger picture. This will be a tour title, his second one. Only Magnus, I think, has repeated ever to be a winner on the tour. So he'll say, I've got 2 titles, just like Magnus. Nobody else has done it. So that is got to be the way he thinks. At least that's the way we think he's thinking. But we'll put him in the hot seat nevertheless and hear his thoughts.
Well, I was just thinking about these Olympics where you have these qualifying heats, and here's what it's all about. The Grand Chess Tour itself, 5 legs. Wesley So got this very nice commanding lead, says, I've got to come in here, clinch third.
And he's doing a spectacular job of that.
+2.
And remember, it's clinch third if MVL or Shaq wins.
Only Shaq.
Only Shaq.
That's right.
+13.
MVL, he gets 4th and he gets it. So Shaq has to actually win though.
Yeah, no, this is a...
Now, what can you say?
I say well done.
I'm saying I expected the other Berlin. You know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about. And just to show the game, however brief it was a Berlin, and it's the one with rook E1 and bishop F1. Richard played knight F5, C2, C3, as Wesley seeks to just play the move d4, taking territory in the center. We saw a trade of knights on e5. Kick that rook backwards, d4, d5, bishop f4, bishop d6. Wesley says, queen f3. I'm willing to trade bishops on my terms. You've got to develop my queen. Next turn, I'm going to play knight d2. Richard says, I'm going to attack your queen, and this is the repetition. And the players agreed to a draw after a few more repetitions.
And speaking of the players, here he is with us, Wesley So with Maurice Ashley.
Currently leading the tournament, more importantly, leading the Grand Chess Tour is Wesley So with us. Wesley, this was a quick draw on your part. Usually players say, well, you've got the white pieces, you're going to go for it. Explain to us your rationale.
Yeah, it's my responsibility. I mean, first, I'd like to apologize to people, also organizers, also to the fans for the quick draw. I mean, it's disappointing, of course, but as a professional player, I kind of have to make decisions which I think are correct. And actually, I'm not thinking about the tour points or the tournament standings, not one bit. It's just I'm not feeling very well today. I didn't sleep well last night. I think I've been drinking too much coffee. So I gotta minimize my coffee intake on that. So I wasn't feeling the best spirits. And there's sometimes, Richard is a very dangerous player. He's very strong. He's almost in the top 10 in the world. So there's always in the back of my mind saying, just be careful this game. Also, I've had history in the past before where in the back of my mind, I wanted to play carefully. Like, for example, against Nepomniachtchi 2 years ago in the Sinquefield Cup, I wanted to play carefully with white. And I wanted to make a draw at some point. But during the game, I was hesitating. I got a better position. I didn't know whether play for a win or play for a draw. In the end, I lost that game so badly. So I think, as a rule, if you want to do something, you can't hesitate. You just need to do it. So, yeah, again, I'd like to apologize. It's not my proudest moment, but as a professional, I sometimes have to make decisions like this. And again, I'm not thinking the tour points. Also against the Berlin, I think White has several ideas that could be playable for a slight edge. But then the game could get long, and if I made blunders, things could go bad. So again, not my proudest moment, but I take full responsibility.
We understand you don't feel well. Why all the coffee? What's up with that?
Yeah, it's my favorite drink. Yeah? I used to drink every day at home. But yeah, this is my third tournament in a row, so there's a lot of nervous tension also in between games, between rounds. Also, I'm preparing and sometimes feel like it's good to have a hot drink by my side. But I just need to lessen the caffeine a little bit. So because yesterday I drank coffee at 9 in the evening, and then I tried lying in bed for the next 10 hours, and I could barely sleep.
Wow.
So that's a big mistake. But again, yeah, obviously it's not attractive to go for a draw with the white pieces, but I play tons of games every year, and sometimes you get some bad games. But I was also happy to save the game yesterday against Fabiano. That's also one of the reasons why I took the quick draw today, because yesterday could have gone badly if Fabiano played a bit better.
Let's talk about that game. I mean, it certainly was a difficult one. When you walked out of there feeling like this was a good save?
Yeah, I think it was a very good save. I think I wasn't expecting Fabiano to play 1c4, and I think he didn't get much out of the opening, but I also messed things up. And in fact, yesterday was very nice when he played a3. We both missed after bishop takes a3. I just trusted him that he has knight b5, trapping my queen. But then I missed this a6, bishop a5, bishop b4 check idea, which suddenly black is better. Anyway, Fabiano is a great practical player, so he's number 2 in the world. I think yesterday I was doing very, very well, but then he always keep finding these practical chances. And objectively, I'm fine, but practically, it's not so easy to defend. And I made some mistakes. And I was quite fortunate, actually, that he played b4 in the endgame. If he played bishop e3, he could have some real chances. But I was quite confident in my chances of holding this opposite-colored bishop endgame. But Fabiano, as I said, is very practical, so he just poses problems on his opponents, problems that are not supposed to be there.
Your thoughts about how crazy this tournament has been in terms of all the decisive games. We just never see this at the Sinquefield Cup or usually on the tour in big events.
Yeah, that's true.
Not classical, anyway.
Classic. Yeah, that's true. Well, there are some clearly out of form players here, yeah, like Swierks and Peter, and everyone wants to get a point from those guys. So I think that's one of the reasons. For example, if you look at other tournaments like Norway Chess, like Argentari had a lot of losses last year. Also, John Ludwig Hammer had a lot of losses previous year. When you have one who's clearly lower rated, everyone tries to get a point off them. But also, 2 years ago, the Sinquefield Cup was much stronger with average rating 27.82. So you want to play for a win with white, but at the same time, you don't want to overextend. So you're playing a fine balance of playing for a win, at the same time not making a blunder. And yeah, I must say Peter Spidler is clearly out of form. And also we have some fighting players like Sam Shankland and Jeffrey Xiong here.
Would you say that somehow the tour should try to include players of like diverse levels so that we can see this kind of fighting chess and you guys will be able to go for it more, or do you want to stick with the old formula of elite players all the time?
Personally, I like elite players because their ratings are there for a reason. I think if you invite the top 10 players in the world, I think that's what gives the most excitement. Maybe change the format a little bit. Maybe don't blame the players, but basically the format. Because, for instance, Taimur Rajabov makes draws, but his rating is very high. He won't be in the top 12 in the world if he's not a good player. So I think Grandchester has tried inviting new players like Badur Jabava or Ivan Sarik in the past, but they haven't really been able to compete for the top prizes. So I think ratings...
He's got to defend my boy Saric there. He got second in the tournament very recently. It was his worst half that kind of ruined it for him.
Yeah, you're right. I forgot about that combination. I have to thank Gary for that. Yeah, you become second and then you end up last.
That's right. Gary had a poor tournament.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so I must say, I think ratings are there for a reason.
You said change the format. What format would you suggest that could make for more contentious chess? Because when you say excitement, the fans like to see wins. They like to see decisive games. And this tournament has 12 decisive games. 2 years ago, 12 decisive games in 4 rounds. 2 years ago, it was 12 decisive games in the entire tournament.
11 rounds.
Exactly.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, chess is very objectively drawn these days. Engine always gives 0.00. Maybe change format, like give slightly more points for the wins, or you have another. You make the time control shorter, and then if players draw, then they have to play again in a shorter time control. I think that's what's necessary.
You would feel okay with that?
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah, I played Norway, the Armageddon. I also like Rapid Blitz. I think I love the form. I'm still quite young, so I can adjust and I can play faster chess. But there might be other suggestions also. But I think the format maybe needs to.
Okay, we'll put your suggestion in the ballot box.
Yeah, there are other extreme formats like you can't play certain openings or no castling, but that's a bit too extreme. But yeah.
Okay, well, good luck in the rest of your games, and stay away from so much coffee.
Yeah, that's true. Now I was thinking now I get two rest days, and I'm going to rest and get some sleep and try to come back and play some fighting chess. We got a lot of exciting chess coming.
We look forward to it.
Two quick questions for you, Wesley. The first is that I really liked the Norway chess format when they experimented with the Armageddons. I enjoyed it as a chess fan tremendously. Again, your thoughts, if the Sinquefield Cup or the classical chess events of the Grand Chess Tour was to use that format, would you find that acceptable?
Yeah, I'm completely open to it, just because I also don't like these draws. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to stick to this format, with all the best players, you're inevitably going to have a lot of draws, like London 1 year, for example.
Right.
So I think even if you don't make the game immediately Armageddon, but you can just shorten the time control. So if you draw in a 90-minute game, maybe you can move the 30 minutes.
And so on.
After move 40, then you can play rapid.
Or blitz,
With the same colors. Yeah, or I think that would make much sense. Or maybe you can give slightly more points to the wins, like 2.5, and then 1 for a draw or something.
Got it. Because you had such an easy rest day, we're going to put you to work as a commentator.
Yeah,
I know you love it. I just want to turn your attention, if you don't mind, to the game of Fabiano and Jeffrey, because this is a kind of a funny Grunfeld defense position, but with colors reverse. And I wanted to ask you, is Fabi overextended himself? He's just played the move A5, Bishop G5, and
I've never seen A5 before.
Me either.
I thought A6.
That's why I wanted to to tease you with A4, Bishop E6, and as a Grunfeld defense player, what are your thoughts here?
I think at first sight looks like Black's just losing a pawn, yeah, like Knight C3 or C.
Knight C3, yeah.
Or maybe not Knight C3, D4.
And
Knight E4.
The purpose here, of course, is that this pawn, now that the pawn's on A4 already, you don't trap the bishop, right?
Yeah, and then plays Bishop E7, Bishop F6. But maybe this is fine for Black, so maybe not Knight C3. But maybe I can play after Bishop E6. I can play C4.
Right.
D takes C4.
Should I take this, trade the queens?
Oh, trade the queens. King D8.
First, and
Bishop B7.
Right.
This looks nice for white.
Doesn't it?
But actually, after C4, I think Fabi will play D4. Yeah, he for sure, because he wants to keep all the pieces and play for win. So he'll play D4.
Well, this is the
Knight D3.
The risk taking that you talked about as white. I mean, okay, Jeffrey's not the highest rated player, but he's quite capable. If you give him a winning position, he's going to beat you.
Yeah, definitely. No, Jeffrey's very dangerous. I think everyone is capable. So that's what I mean. You have to take a fine line between taking risks and playing solid, because you don't want to lose with white. But at the same time, I've never seen A5 before. But as I said, Fabi plays for win with both colors.
Right.
So this could backfire. But he just wants to keep the game going. So that's why I played E4 today, because then you know exactly what your opponent wants.
Right.
But I thought Black was fine with Knight C6, A5. But it's going to be a tough fight now.
Yeah. Wesley, congratulations thus far on your Grand Chess Tour results. Certainly, you're leading for a reason. Well done, and get your rest. We'll see you on the other side of the rest day.
There are only 4 players. So.
Right.
Fighting for this. So
all right.
It's nice. I mean, Magnus is not here this year, so. And also Ding.
We're missing some crocodiles, that's for sure. All right. Thank you, Wesley. And what do you have? What have you been keeping your eye? I see you've got a position on your board.
I've been told that Rex Sinquefield has gone around the Central West End buying up every coffee shop. Shutting it down.
Shutting them all down.
Shutting them all down.
Nice. In the Central West End, he's going to have difficulties grabbing your coffees.
Let's take a look at the Peters Vidler-Najdorf with Sam Shankland.
Sure.
We have a few moves in that position, and I have to say, we thought Sam was reaching for that bishop.
It wasn't.
It wasn't the bishop. It was actually the pawn as he prepares to fianchetto. Risky decision.
I prefer it, actually. I like the pawn on G6, not only because of the long diagonal, but, you know, with this pawn on E4, sometimes these squares tend to get a little bit, well, drafty. And I don't think the bishop is doing as much on E7 as it is on G7. I like this decision. And
especially because of the bishop on D3. I didn't think it was going to be so much that you moved it out of the way.
Right.
But because the bishop's on D3, certain targets against D6.
Right. So if the bishop, and it will go to G7, opening up the half-open D file to target the pawn on D6. That still is going to require quite a bit of maneuvering on Peter's part. And after bishop G7, we've caught up with the players. And again, I see castles, I see rook C8, I see very, very typical Sicilian-like play for black side. I think Sam, at exactly this moment, although he's not in the confessional booth, will say, I like my position. It's decent.
It's a Sicilian position. It doesn't have the usual weaknesses, and especially it's not one of those razor-sharp, double-edged, I'm going after your king, you're going after mine.
Right.
It's more of a slow affair. You have the weakness on D6. You don't have that counterplay on the queen side as strongly. You still have it, but definitely not as strongly. And I would personally take black because I just love playing the Sicilian with the black side. I don't like playing it with white as much.
Oh, interesting.
But that's a personal choice. I think a lot of people would take this with white.
Right. And for me, I didn't really understand the move A2, A4, as Maurice was saying. A2, A4 was a bit, I guess, of a novelty, and that was where Sam played G7, G6. To my way of thinking, and really simplified way of thinking about this Najdorf with the move B7, B5, I'm only terrified of the pawn going to B5 when black is ambitiously attacking the pawn on E4. He's thinking to play B4, or my king's on the queen side, or this bishop is going to B7. So with the bishop already on E6, I don't see B5, B4 as something I need to stop. I don't necessarily like my pawn on A5, actually. A4, A5 doesn't do anything for me. In my mind, I'm thinking, okay, takes, queen E1, I don't know, bishop E7, again, other moves, queen out, castles, and put my king, well, maybe I want to throw in queen H3, right? So I'm trying to target this pawn on E6. I'm not saying that I have a big advantage or anything like that. I'm just saying that I personally don't see B5, B4 as a big deal. And I'm going to move my knight anyway. My knight's not great on C3. So I didn't understand the move A4. And after, we're just going to get up to date with the players, bishop D3 to E2 as well. At least white's not walking out of here with a big advantage, or any kind of advantage for that matter.
It doesn't seem like it, especially with the loss of a tempo, with the fact that black gets to fianchetto instead of long fianchettoing. By that I mean many times in this kind of Sicilians, you castle, you move the rook out of the way, the bishop on E7 goes back to F8, and then G6, bishop G7. You have to wait to do all of this, because at the beginning of the game it costs too many tempi to play G6 and bishop G7. But here, with A4, as you said, thrown in, Sam says, oh, thank you for the tempo. Let me put the bishop on its best diagonal.
I'll take advantage to do precisely that. And again, a lot of dragon players will be very, very satisfied.
I like this line for Sam. I think it's a good opening choice.
Absolutely. Turning it over to you, Maurice, what game has caught your eye?
Well, you said you like the opening choice for Sam. I think you're going to like the opening choice for your student. Darius looking very good against Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, as we see here out of this Gioco Piano. Knight to E4 attacking, knight back to D7. Saying, I don't mind you getting the two bishops as long as my knight is very active on C5. We're going to see that knight visit that square a little bit later. Bishop D5, bishop B6, knight to G3, attacking this piece. Again, the willingness to give up the two bishops. That's not something you see frequently. We say the advantage of the two bishops, but if you get dynamic play, you could have your own chances. And here he says, I'm trading so I can play F5. I don't care about a stinking pawn on C6. You can have it. What would happen? By the way, F5 also, which is even more obviously dangerous. What happens if white decides, I'm going to take this pawn? Looks like a pawn? Not so much. Knight to C5, hitting this pawn twice at the moment. Impossible to defend directly, and he's going to take and play E4, and then the knight's going to be secure forever. If you try to play D4 saying, okay, whatever, you go ahead and take this back, I'm going to put a bishop on D3, and my pieces are going to explode. No, thank you. Let's park the knight on the D3 square, hitting the rook, and be careful, because if you decide, well, this knight needs to be attacked, then all of a sudden, boom, knight takes on F2, erupting in your position, Queen to H4, the threat of F4, unstoppable, exploiting this pin on the diagonal. And suddenly black is just completely dynamic and taking over the game. So back to here, F5, trading on F3, F5. It looks like Darius has got a lot of confidence suddenly and pushing his pawn forward, saying, I won my first game. The first three, you know what? I was warming up. I was warming up. Now it's time for us to play chess. And look at Maxime right now saying, what? This guy's supposed to be easy. This is not what I signed up for.
It's also nice and easy to have confidence when you have had this exact position 2 hours ago on your laptop.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. Preparation, very important.
Inside baseball.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Preparation is
all
very,
prep.
very all
And
prep.
not only will I say this is all prep, this is just the beginning.
Cool. Well, we'll have a lot to look forward to. One of the things that I really wanted to shout out to the audience, thank you so much. One of the reasons why our shows have been so enjoyable, and I'm not joking, is you've had some great questions for the Grandmasters on panel and really keeping us on your toes. So you can send us tweets, and we have some too. How do people participate in our show, first of all, Alejandro?
Use the hashtag Sinquefield Cup. Those tweets will go straight to International Master Kostya Kabutsky. He's sifting through the best questions, answering some of them himself. And the very best, they come here to the studio with us. And let's take a look at our first tweet of the day from Andy Lucas. In a tournament like this, where television cameras are keeping track of every move, why do the tournament rules still require players to fill out score sheets? What happens if in time trouble score sheets are completed incorrectly? Those are excellent questions, Andy. Sometimes we don't touch upon some of the little details of chess, especially we have a lot of newcomers into our game that are used to online formats, right?
Exactly.
You play online, why would you ever score anything? I mean, you have the computer doing it for you. This is a little bit of a combination of rules and traditions.
Legacies, yeah.
Legacies, but the score sheets are actually used in tournament play in case of a dispute.
Right, a written record, if you will, of the moves. Keep in mind some of the rules, 3-move repetition.
50-move rule.
50-move rule. How do I know that I've reached the time control? The question is a very good one, and I do expect that as we do more and more camera work and more broadcasts, the need for score sheets will lessen. So, for example, in golf tournaments now, all of the golf holes are being recorded, but they still fill out their score sheets. And I know scorecard,
and still have to sign it at the end.
Right, and if you do it wrong,
you will be disqualified.
Right, and one guy did get the card wrong and got disqualified.
One guy didn't sign at the end, just left.
One guy did that in the U.S. Championship here and got disqualified.
Yeah, that guy's leading the Grand Chess Tour as we speak. But I think that's one of the things that you have to think about is the 3-move repetition, the 50-move rule, the time controls, and so on. Also, I wanted to say that when I found it really, really marvelous was as a memorabilia keepsake. I have seen some of the old Grandmasters score sheets.
Absolutely.
And they're really fantastic. My absolute favorite, I don't have the personalized copy, was from Paul Morphy.
That's amazing.
Right, and he wrote down the move.
Just history.
Like a sentence. Pawn, P-A-W-N, to the king's 4th house. So it was pawn to the king's 4th house. Yeah. And it was like, what?
Alejandro's
and it was like this incredible, and it was poetry, the flowery thing. And then he had one, like out of this whole score sheet, this massive score sheet, he had one little one, castles.
Oh, castles.
That's it, you write about castles. So if you look at my score sheets, I have E4, E5, Knight F3, Knight C6, castles. I write out castles.
You write out castles?
I write yes.
No way.
Yes. On my score sheets. You could see them for the last 30 years. I write castles.
I thought that stopped being a thing like 100 years. I'm not kidding. Like I thought it stopped being a thing.
Hey, it's a tradition I've kept, you know, the oral history.
Oh, wow, impressive. For us, it's memorabilia. It's a great question. Thanks for it's memorabilia. It's also rules. Remember, in chess, as opposed to many other sports, arbiter intervention isn't really encouraged. You have appropriate supervision, but if there's dispute between the players, the arbiter can't immediately take a side. They have to check the score sheet and see what's going on before they make a ruling. For example, in the 50-move rule, even if an arbiter is actively watching the game, they don't stop the game immediately when a 50-move has been reached. They wait until move 75 before arbiter intervention can be done. And, of course, the player can claim at any point after move 50, but the arbiter can't intervene until 75.
Mm-hmm. Jump in here with the score sheets. Maurice, are you one of those chess grandmasters who keep your score sheets, or do you throw them away?
Oh, definitely keep them.
Okay.
Come on, there's real history. As a matter of fact, there was a very important score sheet for me when I made the Grandmaster title. Big win for me against Adrian Negulescu. And I took that score sheet and gave it to my dearest friend in the world, Willie Johnson. And Pop, I'll talk about him on the show. So that, stuff like that is important. History in the making, for sure. And I think, yeah, you want to keep your score sheets. It is a record. You look at them later, you say, wow, these are my games. And you could look, of course, you could look at them on a database, but it's just not the same. It doesn't have that same feel, that same sense of history. There was a second part to that question. What do the players make mistakes when they're writing down?
Yeah, incorrect.
They're not penalized. I mean, in time pressure, it's like chicken scratch sometimes. What people write down. Usually, though, recognize that this is not the most frequent setting for games to be played. It's not like tournaments all over the world have cameras aimed at the players, recording every single one of their moves. And if you want to go to a dispute to where those cameras, yeah, sure, you could do that if something happened, like a touch move infraction or something like that. But usually all of us have grown up writing our moves down because we're playing in all these weekend tournaments, club events, Bundesliga, you name it. And this is what you need to do because the tournament organizers don't have cameras to be able to say this is what happened, or digital boards that are recording all those moves. So it's just a simple part of tradition. Let's just keep it going. When everybody has a camera on them, God forbid, let's not have that day come. But, every tournament everywhere, and everything is digitized, then maybe that will happen.
That being said, when it comes to mistakes, I have seen this happen for a grandmaster. Writes down all of his moves.
Right.
Thinks time trouble is over.
Time control's been
Time
reached.
control is done. He sees 40 on his score sheet.
Right.
But he missed a couple of boxes.
Right.
And it's actually only move 39.
Right.
And there is no other time control until move 40.
Right.
Sorry, you lost the game if you let your flag fall. And that has happened at top-level events.
Right. Yeah. The worst case scenario, storytelling time. The worst case scenario I ever saw is two players, Lubomir Lubojevic, Matulovic. There's an arbiter, and the players have reached their time control. The arbiter has kept a score as well because there was some time scramble. The arbiter gives the envelope and say, gentlemen, please seal your move. Done. So everybody's in agreement that time control has been reached, and the players go away. And of course, 3 people, including the arbiter, have done exactly what you did or said. An extra box got filled out, and the journalist who was writing his column says, guys, I only have move 39. One of the players lost.
The side
Wow.
I mean, 3 people made the same mistake. I don't know what it was about the score sheet. They filled out, they overlooked the sponsors box or something.
That's crazy.
I know. It was like really hilarious. There was, shall we say, a nattering of teeth? Nice. Maurice, what do you have for us, please?
Well, this game is still on fire. It looks like, as Alejandro said, still in preparation for Black. How do we know? Black started with 90 minutes on his clock, 1 hour and 30 minutes. he's got 3 minutes and 14 seconds more than he started with because of that 30-second increment. He's at 1:33 and 14, while MVL is under an hour on the clock.
Wow.
The moves proceeding very fast. This is not the position, that's Shakriar's position, but this one, after much thought, MVL decided here to play D4. It took him about almost 10 minutes to do. He said, forget about all those taking of pawns. And instantly, instantly,
And that's the novelty.
Came right at him. And you're saying this is a novelty, Alejandro, you know, because you've been preparing this player. D4 played, no move yet for MVL, again in deep thought. He knows his opponent is extremely well prepared, and now the question is how to duck, diverge, play something he hasn't seen, don't fall into any trap. This is a super dangerous moment as Darius is just making move after move after move. Again, you can see the clock times there. Look at MVL, and I don't know what he's writing down now. Looks like he's uncertain going to make a move or not.
By the way, the old days, the form was to write down your move prior to playing the move. Then you looked at your move, or you confirm it, and you made your move. Today, it's considered note-taking and therefore illegal.
Correct.
To
Right. So what did he write down?
You can write down your
The
times.
times.
But I'm curious. I wonder if we can get a little zoom.
Zoom.
And I think
Your wish.
MVL is one of those players that writes down
Down
the
the
times.
times.
This is the only type of note-keeping allowed
Yes.
during a chess game. You can notate the amount of time you have or took for a move, and you have to write it in the same box that you wrote your move.
I'm also one of those very careful time takers. I like to remember when I replay the game, why did I think for 5 minutes here? That was a good time. I had a 15-minute think here.
And by the way, before we zoom out, note, I don't know what Chris Bird would have to say if he had to read the French version of the letters. As you see there, C is for cavalier, for the knight, the F for le fou, T for la tour, which is a rook, fou was bishop, and I don't see any. Where's D for dame?
There are 15.
Dama.
That's a D.
Oh, that's a D.
Yeah.
Okay, that is a D. Taking on F3 there. So he's certainly going to take notation in his mother tongue.
And remember, FIDE rules, you can write in whichever language you want, as long as it's consistent.
Exactly. I always thought that was really funny about Nick DeFermi, a top junior, top player when we were both growing up in the U.S. Championships, always did it in German. S for the knife. I was like, what?
He's American, you should point out.
Yeah, but American.
Why did he do
writing
that?
in German. He just liked it. I think he studied German, I guess. I just want to turn our attention to Shakriar.
Oh, sorry. Before you do that, he played 94. You saw him play 94 and get up.
Right?
As he got up, Darius came back and played Queen H4 instantly.
Like,
let me go get.
I wasn't kidding. It was just the beginning.
Wait a minute, what? But the guy's still blitzing out moves. I better not make a mistake because he knows the whole game. So yes, 94 Queen H4, #1 choice by the engine. Clearly, as Alejandro is saying, Alejandro, why don't you just tell us how the game's going to go? just tell us the rest of the game. I mean, the way it's going now is so predictable. All these moves that are being played, at least for you, for us, it's new.
Instead of asking Alejandro, was knight e4 the best move according to the chess engine?
94 is definitely one of the top moves.
Well, he had to move the knight. I was wondering.
Put it on the central square.
Yeah. Well, the other option, knight h5, to try to keep the e file open and maybe to play for queen g4 attack. But you're saying knight e4 was accepted. Very good. Now let me turn our attention to the game of Shakriar and Lanier Dominguez. Again, this is a top game because so many points in it for the players, and Lanier, obviously, tied for first. Where did it come from? It came from a Queen's Gambit accepted, and again, this is a defense that fashion has over the many decades. Sometimes it's been very popular, sometimes it's completely fallen out of fashion. Nobody knows why. we talk a little bit about the Najdorf and certain moments where so many things have been tried. This is one of those moments. I've seen Queen E2. I have seen B3. I've seen Bishop B3. I've seen Bishop D3. Knight C3 not. I've even seen the move E4.
No, Knight C3 is a try now.
Really?
Knight C3 is a new try.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
It comes back.
But I know what you mean. Like when I grew up,
E4?
when I grew up with Queen's Gambit accepted books, they all said the knight does not belong on C3 for white. And you can even encourage it to go to C3 because it's so bad. And nowadays, people are actually putting that there on purpose.
Exactly.
And I completely feel you. Every single move here has been tried.
Wow.
And suddenly you see a new one.
Rook E1? Like what? Like I play the Queen's Gambit accepted as black, and for me, Rook E1 is new. I'll just leave it there. After Rook E1, Knight C6, and Bishop D3. Now that move I know, in combination with Rook E1, less so. Takes, Bishop E7. White's approach is very strange, but okay, now we've transposed. Everything is okay. We're back into normal territory until I see this move, Knight E5. That for me is rare because it is a straight up pawn sacrifice, a gambit, if you will. White gets great development for his pieces. He's about to play Rook D1. He's looking at Bishop takes F5. And I suspect there's a way of, with precise play, black gets to equalize. But you have to remember each and every move. And I can see Rook AD1, Bishop F5 on white's agenda. Gentlemen, a good gambit? What do you think?
It's not the type of gambit that as black I want to be solving over the board.
Right.
No.
I immediately see so many problems, right?
Right? Yeah.
The guy's prepared this too?
That's the other problem.
What?
He's as
That means
prepared as Derek
he's
is.
not worse?
Whoa.
That means he might be saying, yeah, you know what? There's a way you can equalize.
But show me that
but
precise.
you better show it because I did prepare this. I don't want to see this. I got to take your pawn and then you're going to figure out how to. I think you're going to force me to solve how not to lose or not to get a worse position.
Right.
No, I don't want to see this position. If my bishop were sitting on B7 already, then
That's
I
a
wouldn't.
different ballgame.
I wouldn't believe you at all.
Right? Yeah.
But like this, with the bishop still on C8, a rook coming to D1, I don't even know how you're down a pawn. You have to tell me I'm down a pawn for me. Oh yeah,
isolated queen pawn is missing.
I'm actually down a pawn in this. Right, 6 to 5. Good luck with that. Now take this L because I'll put a rook on D1 and come get you.
Right.
This is This doesn't look like fun.
Yeah, like B5, the desirable B5 to put your bishop. Just timing is all wrong. You lose on the spot. And the rook E1 had a purpose. Thank you very much for that knight fork. What I'm thinking is, I'm not happy. Don't get me wrong. I don't know all of those precise moves. Bishop D6, rook D1, queen C7. The reason I put my bishop on D6, I just wanted to give myself a square for my queen that I wasn't unhappy about.
This is all like borderline losing, right?
Doesn't it? It feels like
bishop. Even a line like bishop F5, pawn takes F5, rook takes D6. It's almost a miracle black doesn't fall apart there.
Probably another move that kind of scares me. I just with no development, I really don't want to get into a tactical slugfest. But to your point, Alejandro, which was bishop takes F5, rook takes. Now you're looking for a cruncher discovery. Do you have it though?
I can get back some material with knight G6,
right?
And still kind of wonder if you can finish your development effectively.
I don't know. I'll just. I
it might be enough for black. You might just have the tempo needed, but that's it's so close.
But that's the thing, is that the computer will probably show you a way that you walk this incredible narrow path, and no deviations allowed. But if you play 6, 7, 8 absolutely precise moves, 0, 0, 0.
Congratulations.
You got your draw well done.
Ho. What happens here if rook E5? I want to trick you.
Rook E5.
We're playing a little
loosey-goosey just to show.
Black, right?
Just for fun.
Just for fun. Okay.
Okay, here's my trick. Queen C4, knight D5.
Ooh.
You fell for my trick.
He just likes his trick.
It's a nice trick.
It's a nice trick. I just wanted to check. That was all.
That's a beautiful
checkmate.
little checkmate. I mean, you don't see that every day.
That
B
being
is for
said,
victory.
That
Yes.
being said, if you don't go queen c4,
Right?
where does the queen go?
Where do I have to go? Back?
Man.
Not
Now
Now I can
looking a
think,
lot more juicy.
now it's a lot more dangerous, right?
Where should I have gotten? Probably from the start. Maybe I should have gone to a difference where rook e5 rocked me.
Yeah.
Rock
And of course
me.
here we're playing a little bit suspiciously with
Yes,
black. We probably
yes,
should go
purposefully,
back purposely to show the dangers of the position.
Bingo, that's exactly right.
But it's also not trivial to us how you're going to develop all of your pieces. It's the checking to the queen in this kind of positions where we would love to hide it. We would like to hide the queen in some position where it's not going to get harassed, but I don't see it.
But hold up. because
Checking
we
to
didn't.
the queen. I mean,
We should note something though. Let's back up. In this position, bishop
Yes.
f4, it was knight takes d4, bishop f4, knight f5.
Right.
Was
kind
the
of
last
voluntary
move.
retreat.
Played
And he
pretty
played queen
quickly, by the way.
c2, right?
Right?
Yeah.
Queen c2, played after 9 minutes thought, after all his other moves were blitzed out. Knight to f5 came by linear, and then Shakriar stopped and thought for 9 minutes. We always want to track that time. Just the way you see MVL tracking the time in the game, we track the time because it tells a story to us. Because we know when you play quickly, it's because you're confident, you're prepared, you know what to do. If you, most of the time anyway, sometimes accidents happen. But when you take some time, it's because you're not sure what the next move is. And queen c2, it can be met by knight back to d4. Like, I was just on d4. Why is your queen on c2? You want to attack my queen with rook d1? What if I play knight to d4? What's your best square for your queen?
I would consider that a slight, how do you put it, moral victory.
Yes.
That my queen is better on d2
D2
than it was on d1 because the rook can swing.
Except the engine gives queen d1 as the best move.
Get out of here.
What? Are you
You're the
I'm
messenger.
just telling you what it said.
Right.
And against knight f5, rook c1 is considered the right move here. Rook c1 keeping a slight edge for white despite being down a pawn. And asking black what to do in this position. You mentioned b5 is not playable.
Right.
Because of the take in knight c6 and then the bishop hangs. b5 is definitely not playable. Queen f3, why do you need your queen on this square when it can be great on that square? So what do you actually do here after rook to c1? What's your next move? And I'm going to tell you what the engine says. You're going to tell me truly to leave the building. Knight h4.
It's time for a break. It's time for a break, guys.
I told you. I mean, what is that?
What is knight h4?
If rook c1, you got to play knight h. Nobody is playing knight h4. But first of all, I don't even understand the move. I guess you're trying to put the knight on g6.
Right.
Sure.
But right now, after a guy plays rook c1, you're going to leave all your pieces sitting here and play a move like knight h4. But what else do you do? Bishop d7 is the other developing move, which loses on the spot, takes, and takes. And now you can't take with your queen because we trade and this bishop is hanging. And if you take with the knight, then knight d5, and you're getting like all over. Bishop c7's coming. Your queen doesn't have any squares. You're going to get killed. So what do you play after rook c1? That looks like, so that's what I'm saying. If this was preparation on Shakriar's part, maybe he forgot rook c1 was the move. Because now, or maybe he just didn't even think of knight f5 and he tried to solve it with queen c2. But now knight d4 is best bet. Bring it back to d1, pretend you want to draw, and then shift and say rook c1, your move. You don't have any really good moves. Knight h4, if Lanier finds knight h4, then you definitely check the pockets.
Or preparation.
But Maurice, you lost me at queen d2.
What's wrong with queen d2?
Which was 10 minutes ago. Which was like, why is the queen not even more purposely well suited for the square?
Well, b5 happens.
Rook d1?
Rook to d1. By the way, black is already better in this position according to the engine. Bishop to b7.
Because you just return the pawn. You don't just you're not unhappy.
You want this? Go ahead.
I don't want that pawn.
Yeah,
But what about queen
That's
e3,
why-
queen h3?
Queen e3?
Queen to e3, queen b6.
Queen b6. That knight's not hanging. Oh my god, I hate computers.
Well, I mean, that's why we're here. We're just stating.
It's incredible.
It's just black is fine.
Self-pinning the knight on d4.
Right.
Well, it was pinned already, so you have to solve the problem. So now you move, you're prepared to play bishop c5. You can have this pawn anytime you like. Black will be like, yeah, good for you. You're giving away your light square bishop to just get a pawn back. That is not what you signed up for when you sack this pawn. So that natural play just doesn't work. Now, it's important to note back here, however, after queen d1, that b5 is possible, but not playable because of bishop to e3. The main point is that c6 square is hanging bishop to e3. Now knight back to f5. Again, queen is best on f3. No need to have it on the d2 square or the c. Hang out on this side, hit this rook. You're in big trouble here as black, as white's pieces have just sprung to life. There's no easy way to develop for black. So rook c1 is the move. What will Shakrar, well, what will Lanier do after queen c2? Because it's hard to put your knight back on d4 after you just took it off of d4. He's going to spend some time trying to work this out.
Some time. I mean, we know Lanier loves taking his time, but do I see 47 minutes left for him?
You do. And
it's a long thing.
He played knight f5 after with 1:26 on his clock.
So he was familiar with the position.
So he's 39 minutes into a think right now, playing a move that he was supposedly familiar with, knight f5. 39 minutes on his clock to
play knight d4.
And he put the knight back on d4 after a 40-minute think.
That's why he's top 10.
You know, one of the things that chess players love to do is who's the greatest of all time. Imagine a peak Morphy versus a peak Fischer versus a peak Magnus. And you go, yeah, but these were different generations, different tools. And they go, yeah, well, imagine you took a Morphy and you gave him a chess engine and all the databases so that he could come up to speed with the top grandmasters. How would they perform? I see this kind of analysis where Morphy would come saying, well, the queen is much better on d2 than d1. He'd have to rethink everything he ever thought about chess to catch up. And I think that would just be hard to impossible. I mean, you know, like, because we grew up with certain beliefs and we cling to them even when they're dead wrong.
Let me go on record to say I hate those debates. I just hate them. I think they're so out of place. You don't compare people from different generations and different arts. I mean, they learn from each other. That's great. You see the influence of players on each other. That's great. But you're not going to come here and tell me, oh, the Capablanca play better than Karp. I mean, they're completely different chess players.
Agreed.
I always hated those debates, especially online. They seem to
They're never ending.
They never end.
Yeah, it's like you don't win the argument.
It's Michael Jordan versus LeBron.
You never win the argument.
Who's the better center? Bill Russell versus
Shaq
not versus Shaq. Will Chamberlain. Well, at least they played at the same time. But would Shaq be able to? Of course, Shaq would dominate if he were back in that day as well. And the arguments continue. Now you got freakish centers in the league, including the Greek freak when he plays the center position. Guys who could handle, come up the floor, those long Euro steps, spin around and dunk on you in your face, or make the pass and you're 7 feet tall. No, the times change, players change, and chess is the exact same way. And your beliefs about chess, though, the critical difference in chess is that all the modern players have seen all the past players' games. And they've sucked all the marrow out of the juice out of the knowledge that they've gotten. And now, because they have all of that, they've then created beyond that. So you're not just coming in and preparing. You have to realize that chess actually changed, that it's a different game, and they feel it, the kids feel it in their bones. Totally. The kinds of things you could do now. That's why defensive play today is remarkable. Yeah, it's the stuff that you thought, you can't take that pawn, and it's like, oh, we could take it. Trust me, the computer has taught me how to just take pawns like this, and it's not going to work. Not that they've analyzed it, that they understand why they could take that pawn and still save the game. When back in the day, Tal, the old sacrifices of Tal's, he'd be like, yeah, I don't think I want to sack that piece. Not anymore.
Well, this whole conversation that we've had in the last few minutes is actually almost part and parcel of a Parkside chat that we did before the tournament to have something to share with the viewers during a break.
Absolutely, yes. We're going to take a small break here in the studio, catch our breath, and analyze the games further. But we're going to leave you with a little bit of a special as we went around the parks of St. Louis, talking about different topics in the chess world, especially some recent events in our world. So take a look. Hope you enjoy it, and we'll be right back.
Alejandro,
Yes, sir.
what have you done during this pandemic?
Well, I have to tell you, the pandemic came just such a huge shock
Right? For everybody.
for everybody, and the chess world was affected in many ways. I have to say some positive and some negative. Of course, as soon as the pandemic hit, everything was canceled.
Right.
We had all these plans. The US Championship was about to come up in 2020. We had a lot of team tournaments going on.
It was the Pan American National Championship. Pan Am's are April, right?
Actually, Pan Ams are in December, and we qualified for the Final Four, the National Championship.
That's what I meant, the National Championship.
For the
sorry.
universities. And St. Louis University was, of course, qualified, ready to compete with the best here. And suddenly, we just didn't have the ability to travel. All
Canceled.
gone, all canceled. Well, that was a tough blow. But luckily for us, in our sport, we were able to move it online.
Okay, very nice.
Oof. We weren't able to manage to make the Final Four online, so that was canceled as well. But slowly, we started getting more tournaments. And I'm happy to say that Missouri has 2 world champions. Not only did St. Louis University win the World University Blitz Championship, but Missouri University, headed by Christian Kirilla, they won the rapid section.
Congratulations. So you guys ended up being world champions.
Right, a tournament.
That's so cool.
A tournament that had never been hosted before because of the pandemic. FIDE was, well, we can host it online. That makes it kind of easy.
Nice.
Very nice.
The St. Louis University, your foreign students, they must have been terribly impacted in all kinds of ways.
They had a tough decision to make. Of course,
Okay.
there were lockdowns around the world, and some of them were unable to travel to America.
Okay.
They weren't able to attend classes in person. Everything was moved online. They had a tough decision to make. Do you want to take online classes from here, or do you want to do it from your home country? And some of them were just unable to travel at all, even if they'd had the desire to come to America. We had visa issues, we had closed borders. It was just difficult for them. And I have to say, it was a very, very tough first semester there with the pandemic. And slowly everything was moved online. We were able to get Zoom meetings. We were able to move all of our classes online. I met with everybody through Skype or Zoom. And
Then you had
life
some
resumed.
Then you had some students that may have been trapped on campus, like they can't necessarily go home or can't necessarily return to their home countries, so they had to stay in the dorms, and
Right, we
that
had
wasn't too pleasant either, right?
No, we had quarantine periods. A couple of my students actually,
Yeah.
they had to quarantine at an hotel for 14 days without leaving the room.
Oh dear, that's
Just to come
awful.
to university, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It was very hard. But things are easing up a little bit. We do have tournaments now, which is, it's a big plus.
Right.
A lot of my students, they were norm hunting.
Okay.
They were trying to get that elusive grandmaster title. They had a whole schedule planned. I'm gonna get my first norm here, my second norm there.
And my next crack is going to be there. That's all snatched away. It's
All
gone.
snatched away, and they had to just be patient and keep their skills sharp by playing online because, well, there were certainly no norm tournaments, right?
Right.
So a lot of them, they said, I have to wait. I'm gonna make myself an online specialist for now, but it's just not the same.
Exactly. Online, unlike over the board, I can play you a 4-hour game.
Oh, of
it's
course.
gonna have, and it's gonna be a cool game, and I'm gonna learn a lot. I am not going to play you a 4-hour game online. I may play you 41-minute games online, but somehow online chess is not conducive to classical chess. It's more blitz It's the arena for blitz and rapid.
And I think I get this asked a lot, especially by amateurs, like why don't grandmasters play classical chess online?
Why don't they?
It's boring. It's just straight up boring. I mean, if you have a tournament and you're playing for something, of course, you add to the mix. And we had several classical tournaments online during the pandemic, but it doesn't have that feel. It's just weird when you're not in front of the board.
I can't see you. I can't make you uncomfortable.
Right.
The clock is ticking. No trembling hand, you know.
And somehow, when you're playing classical chess online, you have to sit in front of the computer for 35 minutes waiting for your opponent to make a move.
Right.
It's just like time's not passing.
Right.
And somehow, when you're in front of the board, 35-minute thing by your opponent passes in a snap.
It can easily go.
Easily. So it's just not conducive, and I think a lot of grandmasters don't like it, and some of them just flat out refuse.
Exactly. I'm not interested at all in the classical chess, but online. But then it's the funny part, the opposite happens when we are at an over-the-board tournament. We just had the Rapid and Blitz, which I really, really enjoyed. But I'm even more looking forward to the Sinquefield Cup, which is a classical time control, where the players really sit down and they carefully craft their plans.
I have to say that I'm a huge fan of rapid chess specifically. I think it's this wonderful mix of fast, but also something that can be explained to the public. We have time to go through the games and explain their combinations and their thought process, and they still have the time to calculate brilliancies.
Right.
But there is no substitute for classical chess.
Right.
It just has this magic where you see these brilliant preparations, where you see that every move needs to be precise. And of course, the level of chess is so high now that yes, we do see a significant amount of draws. Yes, we do see a lot of games peter out, but that magic of this brilliant classical chess, it really can't be explained, and it cannot be replicated in any other format.
Right. For me, I just have to say that I like the Grand Chess Tour a lot. This hybrid format, this combination of Blitz and Rapid in a contained tournament, then the classical. The only thing to my mind that is missing about the Grand Chess Tour, we need more events.
We do need more events.
That's it.
But they are coming. We do have more and more events planned in the Grand Chess Tour, and we've had so many join. Now we have traditionally the Paris tournament. I think that was such a great addition to the tour, and we're gonna have so many coming up. But I have to agree with you. The hybrid, I love it. You have the best players in the world, not just in classical, not just in Rapid and Blitz. You have to prove that you're good at every format to be able to win the Grand Chess Tour, and I think that's what's made every tour winner so far stand out.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, Yasser.
Absolutely.
Let's play
Come
a game.
on, dude, let's go. We're in the park.
Let's
Time
go.
to make a hustle.
Oof, I know this one.
Yeah,
I know
baby.
this one.
No, don't do it.
Oh, surprising me there. Hackasito.
Oh man, I hate those Hakasitos.
I'm Emily Allred, curator at the World Chess Hall of Fame. In August 2021, people around Missouri commemorated the state's bicentennial. As part of these celebrations, a life-size granite chessboard will be installed at a new park on Adrian's Island in Jefferson City, Missouri. Surrounding the board will be 32 images representing the contributions that Missourians have made in varied fields, including agriculture, music, literature, and sports. The board will also educate visitors about significant historical moments and personalities from the state's history, including President Harry S. Truman, Dred and Harriet Scott's courageous efforts to gain their freedom, innovations of George Washington Carver. The project was spearheaded by Dr. Jeannie Cairns Sinquefield, the co-founder of the St. Louis Chess Campus. The chessboard is the Eagle Scout project for Andrew Dowden, a Life Scout and student at Helios Catholic High School in Jefferson City, Missouri. He completed the engravings on the stones surrounding the chessboard using an epilogue laser at the Scouts BSA Invention campus. Around the board will be benches made from 200-year-old wood by Life Scout Maya Thomas, a student at Kirksville High School in Kirksville, Missouri, as a part of her Eagle Scout project. On August 9th, the efforts of both Scouts were honored during a ceremony commemorating the dedication of the Bicentennial Bridge, which was attended by Governor Mike Parson, Lieutenant Governor Mike Kehoe, and the Mayor of Jefferson City, Carrie Turgeon. A free brochure is available on site at the World Chess Hall of Fame and for download at worldchesshof.org. It contains passages about the historical moments memorialized on each of the squares, as well as information about the efforts of the Scouts who made this project a reality.
Welcome back to the 5th round of the Sinquefield Cup. We already have a result for you guys, as Richard Rapport did draw with the black pieces very early on against Wesley So.
Yes, and for Wesley, as he explained, came into the game not necessarily thinking about the Sinquefield Cup or the GC Tour, although I do think he was. He said that he had been drinking too much coffee, didn't have a good night's sleep, and rather apologetic about the performance today.
You know, those 9 p.m. coffees, they really get you.
Right, but for me, he's securing victory in the Grand Chess Tour, clinching $100,000 bonus money. I can't blame him.
If Wesley came into the studio and said, I am feeling like $1 million today, and still thought, hey, the wise thing here is to just force the draw.
Right.
It still makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely.
I should point out.
Over to you,
there was a
Maurice.
thought I had when Wesley was here, but I didn't mention it. But might as well confess now. You know, commentators tend to, make up some stuff. so
Speak for yourself.
It has never happened.
I'm shocked.
So, you know, we're sitting here saying, oh, Wesley's doing this and Wesley's doing that. He's winning the tour. It's a smart idea. It's strategic on his part. And he walks in and he says, I just didn't sleep right, man. I didn't sleep right. It's hard to get inside the minds of other people. It's extremely, extremely difficult. I give lectures on that stuff. It was just a point. You know, we try to get inside their heads, and we get it right sometimes. Mm-hmm. But that time, I think we got it spectacularly wrong. But we're still saying we're right.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, but still, Wesley.
I don't see the logic problem here.
You should have just said, you know, you did it for the tour. Come on, agree with us. Right. He's like, no, it was just the coffee. I'm embarrassed. Sorry about that. Yeah, we didn't expect that to come. No, who would have guessed that was the response?
I've heard a lot of explanations for Grandmaster's draws. Coffee, blaming the coffee. It's not been that's a novelty for me.
Blaming the coffee, for me as well, I have to say. Not sleeping, totally. Tons of players that have trouble adjusting to jet lag, trouble adjusting to a new bed. No problem. Coffee?
Yeah. We got the song "Blame It on the Alcohol."
But blame it on the that I've actually heard isn't a legit excuse.
A chess player drinking?
Yes, it's shocking to be sure. Let's just turn our attention to the game of Vachier-Lagrave for a moment, because that was really an intriguing moment right here. We had just seen the move Queen C2. The engine actually likes Rook C1 as a preparatory move. Oops, excuse me. Geez, what did I do? Let me get this. There you go. Rook C1. The engine likes just developing a piece and asking black what he's going to do. Queen C2 looked far more logical, wanting to bring the rook to D1. After a very, very long thought, Lanier said, you know what? The knight has to return to D4, and I, for one, most especially, was thinking, oh, well, now Queen D2, I get the extra tempo of my queen on D2. Maurice says, the engine says, wrong, Yasser. Put the queen back on D1. Guess what? Shaq agreed. And after knight F5, however, Shaq didn't go for the rook C1 move. He went for a more consistent move. Look, he's gambited a pawn. He wants to bring his queen. He wants to bring everybody over to the king side. He's played queen f3, knight h4, queen h3. And we had a variation where we had a knight h4, and it was justified because we're going to go knight back to g6 and block the bishop on d3. Knight h4 by Lanier, knight d5, bishop g3, knight g6, rook d1, bishop f6. We've all caught up with the players.
And I would suspect we're still in Lanier's preparation. Of course, he was caught off guard by the move queen c2. Clearly taking a long time after that. But he's played every move since instantly, which kind of indicates that with the transposition knight d4, queen d1, we're still in the analysis of
his preparation.
Of his preparation, yes.
Right. And, you know, actually, and even as White has done all of these wonderful things, he's brought his queen over to the h3 square, he has developed his rook. Black still has left his queenside pieces, if you will, on their original squares. In a certain way, Black has solved a lot of the problems he was facing before. Specifically, his queen on d8 was really being targeted. And now, I mean, the compensation is still there. There's no question the compensation is still there. But I have this real dread that by the time I win back the pawn on d5, for example, if I do something as mundane as knight takes, pawn takes, bishop here, just terrible ideas. If I end up winning the pawn on d5, guess what? Draw. Everything just happened. All the pieces get traded. So I think Lanier has righted his ship somewhat with the sequence over the last several moves. Maurice, back over to you.
Question, has you guys ever studied the Knights Tour?
The Knights Tour? Yes, actually, yeah. I have.
Did you get a chance to meet Koltanowski, by the way?
Yes, George Koltanowski. Yeah, I did get a chance to meet him.
The Dean of American Chess, yeah.
Yeah,
George.
Because that was the Knights Tour that he did.
Yes, a phenomenal memory. He also used to play blindfold chess. I think he held the record before. We have Timur, who holds the record now.
And
he was one
Najdorf
of
was
the
in
record
there too.
holders.
Yeah.
Najdorf was, but anyway, he was a great blindfold player, and he used to do the Knights Tour and make money regaling people with his stories as he did the tour, which involves a knight going to every single square, a single knight with nothing else on the board, going to every single square on the chessboard once from where it began. And then the mathematicians got involved and showed the different knight tours, etc. Well, we had a knight tour in this game. Not quite, but let's start right here. This knight here on B1, you're going to watch it. Just watch the knight. We saw this game. We're talking about the game between Maxime and Darius. Knight to D2, knight B6, H3, bishop H5, bishop B3, and now let's get the second move of this knight to E4, attacking this piece. And then a little intermezzo before knight to G3. So march from here to here to here to here. Okay, bishop F3 and F5, D4 by Maxime, F4, and the knight goes back the other way. And you remember that line, that Benny Hill? Anyway, the knight's back on D2. The knight was here, and he went here, and here, and here. And let's go back, and let's tour it back to the D2 square. That's the same exact knight. And this move is the first move that Alejandro said, no, we didn't prepare that one. That one's different. That one's different. That's a Koltanowski move. Yeah. The Koltanowski type. Knight back to D2, and after e takes D4, now I'm not going to take a pawn. I like my knight on tour. The knight hits a touring with Jagger and his band. Well, this knight certainly has done a lot. It looks like it's going to take this bishop on the next move. Darius has now finally started thinking. Like now he's down on the clock. Clearly he didn't expect these moves. He can take on C3, in which case you could take on B6, or you could just take back on C3 saying, I'll play this position as well. White has sacrificed the pawn for this position. He has compensation in this bishop, which is putting enormous pressure on this diagonal. And this bishop is looking to potentially go to the A3 square. He does have some pressure, but it looks like Black should be fine here. One of the moves the engine gives is the very exotic queen to G3. That's not a move you see every day because obviously pawn takes, I can't do. There's a bishop sitting on the B6 square, so this move is possible for Black. What an interesting series of possibilities. Chess is such a rich game. It's incredible.
Thank you, Maurice. But I really have to help because, whoa. I really have to share with the viewers what the Knights Tour was all about. Because what George Koltanowski did was something absolutely incredible. I saw him do it several times. So there's a chalkboard, if you will, a chessboard, 64 squares. And he would invite the audience as he's regaling all the stories. What would you like to put on A1? Well, we're going to put Alejandro Ramirez on A1. And what would you like to put on E4? Well, I'd like to put Cincinnati, Ohio on E4. And what would you like to put on F8? Give me something, anything, a necktie, yeah. Necktie on F8. And what would you
he
like
would
to
sequence the squares, no? Or would he just do them separate?
No, random. Everybody just randoming, putting something on each square. So all 64 squares are filled
with something.
A telephone number.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay, now stop and think about that. A telephone number, a name, a street address, a thing, an object. And then he would say to the audience, okay, let's remove a square. Let's remove a square. Like, so we would just edge out F7, just that. So now he's got to go to 63 squares. So the chalkboard would be disappeared from his point of view. And he'd be talking a story, and he'd say, well, you know, back in Belgium in the day in 1933, we had this incredible sequence. But before I do that, I'm going to go from Cincinnati, Ohio, to Alejandro Ramirez. And I'm going to go from Alejandro Ramirez up to Seattle on B3. And by the time you get to the last 7 moves, you can see the path he's going to take. And it's just... It was awe-inspiring. It was amazing.
We've seen Magnus. We've seen Magnus's incredible memory, right? Videos of that. Too bad we don't have videos of what you just described.
Exactly. It was just breathtaking, and it was so much fun. I mean, and at the end, everybody was just big smiles, thrilled and delighted us. And now, who is thrilling and delighting you with that position on the board? Is Jeffrey delighting you, or is it Fabi?
Well, Jeffrey had his own night tour in this game as well.
Yes, he did.
Because he had a knight that was sitting early back here on F3, and we did see the game. I'm just going to go through the moves very quickly as we had this reverse Grunfeld, castles, and D4, CD4, knight D4. There's that knight going on tour. E5, sorry, got to move again. And now A5, we're insisting, says Fabi, bishop to G5, A4, hitting the knight, and now knight to C1. That's the tour. I'm saying it's not exactly the most exotic knight you've ever seen, dropping all the way back to C1. And after bishop E6, he chose the move E4. We were thinking C4 in the style of the Grunfeld, but he chose E4, and Fabi said, I'll take the space. And now F4, and Fabi said, I'm ready. You just weaken the E3 square, so if you take on E5, I'll just play knight to G4, hitting this pawn, looking for the dark square bishop, and thanks for that great square that you weakened when you played the move F4.
Right.
So bishop E7, now the knight, hey, still on tour, bringing the knight back out. The engine does not approve of this move. Knight to C6 played. So far, no truly exotic moves in this game by black, except by this pawn. We normally would expect it to be back here. But natural squares for all black's pieces, while white still has weird, this bishop is bad. This knight, it's a good piece after all that time, though, that it spent getting to that square. And all black needs is castles to say, I got me a good game. This is great for black, doing extremely well. And now bishop F3, stopping the knight from going to G4. That's not a move you want to play. When you decide, I really actually have to play this move, something's gone wrong.
Yeah, what an ugly move.
That absolutely feels artificial because of the knight G4 problem. Had to be stopped, though, because it was so powerful. That's an indicator that this tour should have left him in Seattle.
Shouldn't have gone to Alejandro. A quick question for you there, Maurice, because it flashed through my mind. Instead of the move bishop G2, F3, imagine I just made the following challenge. Knight D2. Knight B1 to D2, knight G4, not the only move, but a move. I take on E7, I'm assuming queen takes for just a moment. Now I was looking at f5, attacking the bishop and the knight. Knight's got to jump. I'll take on e6.
Ooh.
You take on
spicy.
d1. I take on f7 with a hakasito. You moving your king, and I'll take the knight. Do I have sufficient compensation for the? I got a rook.
I'm gonna.
And
I don't have an engine, but I'm gonna tell you the evaluation. No.
No?
No way.
Knight c4. Well, let's just continue. I'm thinking I get to go. If you take on f7 twice, I was going to take on e5.
And?
Oh, hold on. It's only 2 pieces.
It's only 2 pieces. You don't
where's
have
the
a rook on a
rook?
piece. You don't have a rook on a piece. It's 2 pieces.
I only got 2 minors.
Oh,
thought
I
had
hate
a
when
rook
that
and a-
happens, right?
Oh, what did I-
No, not even close. 2 minors, not a rook and a piece. So those variations will not work.
Right. I was thinking that, nah, just didn't work. Okay, well, I asked and answered. Isn't it wonderful?
And we do have questions coming our way as we rejoin the Twitter conversations.
Yaroslav.
Let's see, Sinquefield Cup. Can you please ask the players if they feel playing in the mask has some effect on their performance?
Good
That
question.
is a good question.
Very, very good.
We have talked to them off air. Most of the people that I've talked to say it is annoying, but it is not to the point where it's suffocating, that it doesn't really impact their performance too much, but it is certainly not comfortable.
Definitely not comfortable. And for players who wear glasses, I can tell you it affects them because the glasses do at times fog up. And can you imagine yourself in time trouble with little time on your clock and suddenly you're breathing hard through a mask and it impacts your eyesight? So yeah, I would say it's uncomfortable, maybe in some cases especially so. But what are you going to do? I mean, the club, unfortunately, or fortunately, has to abide by the rules and regulations of the city of St. Louis. And for this event, you know, we are practicing all of the social distancing, all the rules and restrictions
Are in place.
Even ourselves.
Yeah, we have a tape measure that confirms that this is 6 feet of distance.
Right.
For that reason, we have an exception.
Right.
All right, we are told that we have another tweet coming this way. 4th Street of the Apocalypse. Wow.
Oh my.
As GMs and commentators, chess has been a major part of your life for many years. What other aspects of your life outside of chess have most improved or been impacted positively because of what chess has taught you? For me, it was mathematics. Well, thank you at Ferret, you, the 4th ferret, not secret, the 4th ferret of the apocalypse.
Oh, wow. There was a chess engine called Ferret. From Seattle, actually. It was pretty darn good. For me, definitely life planning. Seriously, what I mean by that is that you have certain things that you have to do in America. Taxes, very, very important. Preparing all your income taxes. So you have to take a very disciplined approach to those types of things. And for me, chess was a real discipline. How about you, Alejandro?
For me, these questions are always strange, because I don't remember life without chess.
It was always
It was always there, so
right?
it's like asking you, you know, when...
How did chess impact your school studies or something?
I don't understand the question. It's just always been there.
Right.
So for me, chess has always been an integral part of my life. I don't feel that because of chess I improved at something else or another. It would be difficult for me to gauge. The thing I do notice from a lot of people, and I'm glad that our viewer said mathematics, because that's actually a rare one. Among grandmasters, it is thought of that there is more of a myth that chess players are good mathematicians. Of course, we have exceptions. We have extraordinary mathematicians.
Right, Dr. John
Nunn,
Jonathan
Maxime himself,
MVL.
but not necessarily because they studied chess, but more because they dedicated themselves to that field. Chess itself not really being...
Yeah, it's interesting the way you described it, because you were a prodigy, very, very young. Chess was a part of your life. I was a late bloomer. I was 12 years old, so I really had a consciousness, if you will, before chess. So I kind of knew what life was like without chess.
That sounds terrible.
That sounds terrible. And then chess, became a bigger part. Maurice, jump in. How has chess impacted other aspects of your life?
Well, chess has been incredible. And late bloomer, you were 12, I was 14.
Right.
When I really got into chess. And for me, it was something that I actually consciously tried to get better at. What were the things that I could do? Growing up in Brooklyn, I didn't have I didn't have that many examples of top players to hang out with and get better. And I tried every which technique I could, including thinking and studying other disciplines, which include philosophy, mathematics, self-help books as well. And I think because I was trying to get better at chess, my extreme study of all those other fields, I say extreme study, but my interest in all those other fields, physics as well, as to how to help me to be a better chess thinker, made me a better thinker and person in life. And for me, chess has been a method of self-growth beyond the chessboard itself, and I do a lot of talks on that as well. So chess has impacted me in profound ways, very much not one specific field. I'd like to take our attention to this position.
Right.
Because Shakhriyar, one thing about Shaq, you might argue, he's not exactly a subtle player. And you guys are laughing. And he's a man after my own heart because I wouldn't consider myself subtle either. Shakhriyar would do well at Brooklyn, to hang out with the homies, because he lines some pieces up and it's like, let's go. It's going to be a war. And when the war starts, you want that guy because he's going to drop some heavy bombs. And he doesn't always play the most precise endings, but he knows how to attack. And so for me, in this position, instinct said, bring my bishop out the way and go to B1 and let's rumble. Let's just see what happens. All the pieces are ready. All of white's pieces on great squares. The pin is on. What are you planning to do here? Now, the engine gives as best the move queen to A5, a very interesting move, getting out of the pin and saying, let's press on you and get an attack, counterattack going. And now, a very profound move. And if Shakhriyar plays like this, he's a boss. This move, next move, is very tricky, and it's bishop takes on G6. Just because the queen just left, you get to centralize this knight, get it out of danger, and now just some trickery, some cookery started to develop in the position. You could take this pawn if you want to, sure. Suddenly the knight is in your house, and things are slowly but surely starting to develop. Is this winning? By no stretch, but it's getting dangerous, this kind of position building. I want to point out this variation, however. Bishop B1, queen A5, bishop takes, pawn takes, knight to E4, bishop back to E7, and here the engine gives G4 and says white's a little worse. So I tested it. I said, okay, I want to just play A3. Tell me why I'm worse. And here the engine says, actually, you're not necessarily worse because we have to play the move queen D8. If you got to play queen D8, I'm going to play like this. I'm going to go right into this line and test you because it's not easy to deal with this knight this knight coming to G5. You play knight F6. The knight on E4 goes to G5, and we're in this tour mode again. These knights are dancing today, guys. Yeah. Knight to G5, and here's a problem because H7 is mate. The knight could move. This knight is going to come under heavy pressure. F7's potentially hanging as well. You've got to be careful if you are black. So, yes, black should be equal, but what Shakhriyar is saying is, you might be equal. I'm not trying to necessarily beat you. I'm just going to use some comp. Let your time tick down. Let's get back to the clock situation. He's now at 32 minutes is linear. The more you think, the more some trickery might show up, a little mistake here or there, and you'll get knocked off the board. Linear, deep in thought, trying to figure out what to do here. I would argue, if you're black, you probably want to be practical somehow and trade some pieces off. Absolutely. But it's not so easy to do. Like, how do you make the next few moves as black to lessen the pressure from your position?
Well, I'll definitely go with your queen A5. Looking, as you say, to trade the pieces. I definitely want to go knight takes C3. Now, for me, the move bishop takes G6, that's really confounding. It's sort of like you went bishop D3 to B1. You could have started with bishop takes G6. You actually said, no, I wanted to see you move your queen to A5 first. before I gave up the light square bishop.
That is pretty peculiar.
Right.
Another peculiarity of the
Confounding.
position is that if I was black in that situation, queen a5, bishop takes g6, I don't think I would be thrilled to take with the h-pawn. I think I would be thrilled to take with the f-pawn, because it does come down to piece activity, right?
Right. And in this particular case, your rook on f8,
Right.
maybe your king is just a lot safer.
A lot safer when you take with the f-pawn. Your rook is a little active.
On the other hand, the e6 pawn, you know, like that's...
But you're up a pawn.
You are up a pawn. I can,
right?
I can say, have that pawn at some point. I'll have the pair of bishops because you took on g6
Right.
with your own bishop. I'll be happy to give that one away, finish my development, and say only black can be pressing.
Interesting, interesting approach. Another game I'd just like to turn our attention to is I feel like this is a day of questions, you know, and getting them answers. The answers are less than satisfying. I'd like to turn to the game of Peter's Fiddler for a moment against Sam. We're all, you know, applauding Sam for his wonderful effort of putting his bishop on the long diagonal, protecting his king, much more active play. And probably it's almost like the last few moves, right? A5. Okay, that's a purposeful move for white. I understand you want to lock down the queen side, and on a good day, you are controlling, after all, this b6 square. Then came the move rook c8, very good. Rook e4, protecting the pawn on e4, rook a4, protecting the pawn on e4 from afar. Oftentimes, rook takes c3, knight takes e4, very standard exchange sacrifice in a Sicilian. I understand the move rook a4. Rook e8, okay. H3, okay. Queen e7 and bishop d4. And as I start thinking about the last few moves and, you know, like putting them all together, it feels to me like Peter has accomplished little incremental steps, and I applaud his moves. So much so, I started asking myself, what would Sam play after this move? And if I was to ask you, Alejandro, in this position as black, what moves come instantly to your mind as Maurice often gives us these flash tests? Would H5 have been first, second, third on your radar?
I don't think it would have been top 10.
Exactly. That was because I was actually having this exact thought myself. Like, what am I going to do as black? Am I going to go rook c7, king h8? What did I want to do? Sam flashed out the move h5, and I was confounded. Lots of questions for me, and I'm not sure.
On the other hand, I understand that move. You did play h3 as white. Maybe
I did it to make luft and maybe to stop the knight, not necessarily because I was going to go g4.
Right, but if you're going to give me the weakness on g3, perhaps at some point I can start saying that I'm going to put my pawn all the way down on h4. And I don't know, on a good day,
right,
I'll put a knight on h5, or I'll put a bishop on this diagonal.
And that will be a good day indeed,
right.
Because like the pawn on a5, looking to control b6, h5, h4, controlling g3. Yeah, well, I'm waiting for the forces to really do a great battle, but this seems to be one of those games that keeps boiling, right?
Boiling, yes.
Yeah,
Nothing
the temperature
concrete.
is building.
Now, it also asked the question, what is white's next move?
Right, okay, so for me, I'm thinking always in the following terms. How do I improve my pieces? What piece is not at its maximum? I kind of like the knight on f4 or the bishop on... A lot of good pieces to me, even this bishop on e2. The piece that I'm having the problem with is my queen, frankly. I'm looking... now that I've said that, I'm saying to myself, well, what would be the great square?
Excellent. Show us.
Maybe e3, maybe h4. So usually I would play the move queen e1 to crawl around the first to go to h4.
Queen e1 played.
Yeah, but when I played the move queen e1, I was thinking in my, I'm dreaming that I could have provoked a move like h5 because I see that as a, I'm not going to say massive weakness or something like that. It's just sort of like it's nice to see maybe maybe a weaker pawn on g6. There were structures that white could have forced where we would go knight takes e6, f takes e6. Maybe king g6 is a little weaker. Your take on our discussion, Maurice. How did you evaluate h7, h5? High on your radar of moves, candidate moves?
No, I'm not touching that pawn.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear. Some old school Brooklyn.
Thank you. No, I need
keep
protection.
Keep it solid.
H5, no, that looks too weakening. No way in the world.
Interesting.
That's Sam, but Sam has shown some depth. Remember he came in and said when we had that bishop on b6 that was being buried by the move c4, c5 as black, and your bishop couldn't go anywhere, and Sam said, said, no, but your knight on b3 is worse than my bishop, which looks like a pawn.
On b6.
And we were...
that was good. That was very insightful.
Snap evaluation. I said, that's
very insightful.
That's pretty cool. There's a lot of insightfulness. Let's dig down a little bit. In this position, we talked about the move queen a5 being met by the very paradoxical trade bishop takes on g6. The trade bishop for knight is one we call the grandmaster trade. To give up to give up a bishop for a knight takes careful thought because you're giving away the two bishops when you do so in a condition like this one. And you have to make sure that your knights will have great work and you'll be able to attack the opposite color. That is, if you give up a bishop, this light square bishop for this knight, your opponent will have a light square bishop that you won't be able to compete against directly anymore, but you'll have a knight which can control dark squares that this bishop could never control. So you can use that knight to effect on the opposite color of the bishop. Bishop takes knight is like one of those grandmaster trades. Let's switch to a different position, and I don't know if you're going to be happy here, Alejandro.
Why?
Because I told you there was some danger, a little bit, not serious, but knight c4, rook ad1. Now here, if you're arguing, let's get the two bishops advantage, you take on b6, but grabbing the two bishops here, not so special. You can take back, and he's still got great solid position. It's playable. You could take and get a pawn back. If he trades. MVL said, I'm not interested in the two bishops. I'm not thinking about the two bishops. That would be kind of stale, old school thinking. What I'm talking about is after rook ad8, I'm going to take on c6, give up my bishop and give away the advantage of the two bishops. And after it takes back, I'm going to now play a quiet move, bishop to d2, containing no real threat, by the way. What did Bishop, what's developing? The thing? Just developing a piece and saying, your turn. Your turn. I don't want pawns back. You can take this pawn if you want to. I don't think you do because now this bishop was quiet here, turned into a quiet assassin on this square with a rook potentially coming to e7. That pawn I could take anytime I want to. And now white has tremendous compensation for the pawn. If black can even defend it, black will have to find some moves here. For example, queen g3, that exotic move we talked about before, could be met by rook e7, also could be met by just takes before rook e7. Now we'll take the bishop, and the bishop's on the long diagonal with some force. So white starting to develop a little bit of initiative with this move bishop to d2. We saw how quickly Darius played in the opening. Now he's under an hour. He's at 51 minutes and 48 seconds. He's got to be careful. I said earlier I'm a little bit worried for Darius. What happens sometimes when you prepare and prepare and prepare, you're not in thinking mode. When your opponent finally forces you into thinking mode, you have to shift out your brain away from memory into analysis. And that transition can sometimes take a little while to really get into the new position you're facing, as everything that you prepared is now irrelevant because your opponent's playing something different. So let's just be mindful. He's got to play some good moves in the next. I mean, obviously, you got to play great moves all the time.
Right.
But I feel like the next 4 or 5 moves, is where this game's going to be decided. If he finds the right recipe, he can tamp down any initiative that MVL has and get a nice game and rock and roll. But he's got to find those moves now. I feel like it's right. That's my instinct. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like it's now that the solution has to come. Next few moves to say, MVL, it's nice that you played, but I got this.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is one of those positions where precision is likely to count for a lot.
And that's one of MVL's specialties.
Yes.
So precise in so many different positions.
His calculation is just amazing.
It was actually very surprising that yesterday
he didn't have that precision with the move queen e8 instead of queen d7.
Yes.
That
Yes.
gave Lanier those chances.
It was that one move mistake,
Yeah.
and it was gone. It was over after that one move mistake. Quick question for yourselves. When you think about the table, the material table, rook is worth 5, et cetera, and you say the knight is worth 3, what material count do you give for your bishop?
If the knight is worth 3.
Yes.
Usually, like, it's not a very great answer, but I would say like 3.2, 3.3.
And for you, Maurice, when you do the table, the material table?
This is a complex subject for me. I don't really believe in the table so much. I don't think it's a count that way. I think it's more the similarity of the pieces than it is the table count itself. I say a bishop and a knight are close, and it depends on the position. I don't like to say the knight is 3, et cetera. It's just the pieces are close to each other in value, and sometimes the bishop is good in this position, and sometimes it's even better, and sometimes it's just about the same in value.
Okay, so for me, I always saw it of the bishop, the knight, the rook 5, the queen 9, the knight 3, the pawn 1, the bishop 3.5. So when you give up the bishop for the knight, then that's to me what makes sense, because you're giving up a bishop which has a higher material value, like in the game of Shaq, bishop on b1 takes g6, right? So you're giving up 3.5, because if I'm on the if I'm an audience member in the show and I'm hearing you, Maurice, talking as you just did, MVL gave up the bishop, Darius gives up his bishop. It's like, why the bishop? It only makes sense if the bishop is more valued than the knight, that you sit there and say, well, I want to retain my bishop.
So when you learned chess, your table was basically pawns worth 1, bishops worth 3, knights worth 3, rooks worth 5, queens worth 9.
Yeah.
So I had this argument.
3.5 for the bishop. Yeah.
No, when you learned chess, was it also 3.5 for the bishop?
3 for the bishop. I in my mind, I made the bishop 3.5 because the table was wrong.
And I had this argument with Grandmaster Christian Kurilla, one of my best friends. Yeah, and he said something that was so ridiculous that every Grandmaster in the room jumped on it.
Like, no, you can't say that. What did he say?
A queen is worth 10.
No, you can't say that.
No, but I've heard that. I've heard, you know, the Russians come up with a queen is worth 10?
Yes, they do.
I don't think that's a surprising evaluation. The queen, I mean, a queen is worth 9. Like, does that, to me, that again, we start as beginners with a certain set of numbers that are agreed on. That's what's told to us. Mm-hmm. Then we freeze that in our minds, right, if that's what it is. But then as you get better, you start saying, something's up here. There's so many exceptions that it's not absolute. So then you start comparing, contrasting situations on the board. When should I give up a piece for another piece? Mm-hmm. Sometimes you see a knight that's a beast. Remember, Fischer played famously against Taimano. Mm-hmm. Knight takes bishop.
Knight takes Petrosian.
Against Petrosian, that's right.
Knight takes d7.
And you're like, that knight is a monster. That knight's not a knight anymore, like some regular knight. It's a monster. You're giving up that for the bishop in this position. Everything is based on the situation on the board. And so we can't just do a formulaic assessment of everything. Sometimes we see an exchange sacrifice, but I got a knight and pawn, and you go, oh, I don't know what rook you've got, but my knight's rocking and rolling, and you better sack for this knight, and you understand that's what you should do. So I don't give the numbers any credence. I know there's been much more complex mathematics done by folks to make this comparison about what the value of the piece is. I think when you start looking for a specific value of the piece, the idea that a pawn is worth 1 and a knight is worth 3.0, yes. So the pawn is 1.00. Okay, got that. A knight is worth 3.00, not 3.02, nope. Not 3.13, not 2.89. I mean, it all depends on the position. You look at Vichy, for example. Bishop takes knight all day, every day. He loves his knights. Right. So that's a really complex topic, the material evaluation. There have been books, not that many books, in fact, written on the topic. And I think a lot of players are slaves to that formula. So when they see a move like bishop takes knight by MVL, by the way, I'm in a position further down the line, they're surprised. I want to get to this position, though.
Yeah.
I can't play a move. I've been looking for a move for black other than taking on C3. I can't play one move that's not, I have not, let's just say can't. I have not played one move that the computer doesn't say, bad, you suck,
really?
Terrible. I have not played one move yet. Like, I've tried different moves. I've tried competing for the E file. I've tried playing a move 8-6. I've tried C5. Every single move I made, the computer says, that's not it, that's not it. This is it as far as the engine is concerned.
What about knight C5? That would be my choice.
Okay, knight C5. Computer thinks that's not bad. You're better than me. All right, knight to E5 would be the response, and the knight has given away the square, E5. So now the knight is on
F6 instead.
Something similar, but keeping the bishop on B6, not blocking the bishops on B6.
And the engine hates that move. That was one of the moves I tried as well. And the engine does not think that's any good.
Hates that
No,
move.
now the engine wants
Rook E7. Oh, take it in Rook E7.
No.
What?
No.
I can't take it.
I mean, it's crazy, right? So takes on B6 is the correct choice. And take on D4.
So you go
But
bishop
here you have
C3.
C5.
You do have C5. The engine doesn't care, and it's sickening to watch how this works. But C5, the engine thinks is also not any good, and you're not going to believe the next move. A4.
Is your thing broken?
It must be broken, right? What are you going to do? Take?
Right?
Yeah.
Because
Take?
rook takes bishop C3 is not what you want.
It's got to be broken. It's got to be broken. It wants to play rook C1.
C5.
C5,
C5?
A5.
Get out of here.
A5. Just mess you
What?
up.
I mean,
Mess
this is
you up.
outrageous. This is outrageous, Chet. Just break the structure down. And I mean, this
A4 against C5 is such a spectacular move.
it's beyond. It's beyond
Yeah.
our conception. It's insane.
Nice.
Will MVL find these moves?
Speaking of challenges, by the way, Shakhriyar has actually been in a deep think. We left it right here, and we were expecting Lanier to come up with a move. Queen A5, very logical move, getting off the D file. As Maurice said, you want to make trades as black in this position. Being pinned prevents that. So what did he do? He moved his queen. He said, Queen B6, look at me. I'm out of the pin on the D file. I'm hitting the pawn on B2 and asking Shaq what he wants to do. Now, Shaq doubtlessly is thinking what I really want to do is play a move like knight E4 and, you know, bring everybody over to the king side. And, okay, what's your next move? Queen takes B2. And he did, after a very long think, play Queen H5. Did I see that? Yeah.
Yeah, Queen H5.
Queen H3 to H5. And he is, once again, offering the B2 pawn, saying, hey, you brought your queen to B6. If you want it, you can have it.
What is the point of the move Queen H5?
I am not sure, actually. So I'm thinking queen takes B2, right?
Maybe it's just to move out of the attack of the bishop on C8. So
Makes sense, so that you can play knight takes D5, and when it comes, you're here. Oh, knight F7.
I was thinking about knight F7, but I can't make it work. Rook takes F7.
Bishop
takes
G6.
G6. Pawn takes G6. Rook E8.
Check. Rook F8. Queen takes D5. Check. Give me your rook. You got to go bishop E6. No choice.
It's not very good.
And now, well, that's what Shaq is thinking. That's where
How did you guys get here? I'm sorry. I was.
We started
I
with
see.
Well,
Okay.
we played Queen H5. We
I
took
got
on
it.
B2.
I got it.
Because,
Yeah.
you know, Yasser is the
Well,
precedent.
no. Well, not only that, but we were trying to understand why he moved his queen to D5 out of the way of the bishop on C8, and this is, well, we're searching for the answer here, and we came up with knight F7 as
Big time move.
yeah. Oh, by the way, we don't necessarily have to take on g6 right away.
Because knight f8 runs into a bit of a problem.
A puzzle rush tactic. Oh.
Like,
mate. So you have to still go back with the rook, and I can take, and I think you still have to go with the bishop. And I can take, and I haven't given up my bishop yet with bishop takes g6.
I like this for white.
I do too.
Yeah.
Which probably means queen b2
might not be playable.
Error.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This
Wow,
one seems
fascinating. Queen h5 and some really, really high level stuff going on over here.
Let's move to the game between
Yes,
Peter Svidler and Sam Shankland. That one, I'm not entirely sure, but it does seem like they might be starting a repetition. You can see that knight on f4, attacking the queen on e6. Currently, not much to think about. Queen e7 is really the only move. If you put the queen anywhere else, it runs into some kind of discovery.
Exactly.
They are repeating.
Knight
They
d5.
are Get it done. Should be a draw.
And I think that's...
I think for Peter, I mean, these losses have really...
and I think that's it. I think that's going to be the draw.
Draw agreed. These losses that he's had in the tournament have really taken the wind out of his sails. And he's saying...
Enough.
Rest day.
Rest day's coming.
Yeah, let's just recharge. And for Sam, well, I don't know. How would you evaluate his first half?
Certainly disappointing
got
for
a
him.
Big win
but
over
he
Shaq.
did get that big win, and I think that's the difference between him being completely disappointed with the tournament and saying, I'm okay, I'm still fighting. It's not exactly where I wanted to be with -1, but I'm back in the mix, and I think a draw here with black, especially against Peter, no problem for him.
Okay, fair enough. And Maurice, back over to you, because Darek, I mean, he's being challenged by MVL.
Yeah, and MVL played exactly that way. Knight takes on b6 that we've seen, and now he's got another question to take on the b6 square with which pawn. A pawn looked natural, but we saw that line. I want to point out the clock times. Remember how big his lead was? It was like this. Well, now he's starting to shrink. Big time. He's got 43 minutes to MVL's 34 minutes. So now it's down to less than 10 minutes when we saw a huge differential when he was blitzing out those opening moves, and already Engine saying clear advantage to white in this position. Clear advantage. So the idea is to do this and takes and allow the c5. But I mean, this move a4 comes from outer space as far as I'm concerned. What an amazing sequence. a4, rook c1, prepare a5. That's chess. That's some great chess. If MVL finds that, he's a boss. Knight takes on b6. Some trouble here for Dariush, slowly being outplayed by MVL.
All right, and well, I just thought it was impossible to keep the torrid pace of the last two rounds. I was a little bit worried about the hubris of our opening of the show to extol the virtues of the many decisive games, and we have seen two tame games, I want to say.
Just call it what it is. The commentators curse.
Yes.
Anything we say on air, the opposite will happen. That's simply how the shows go.
Yes, yep. I think Tom set it up like that.
That's how it works.
Yeah.
I am quite honestly shocked that Dariush's position is as bad according to the engine.
Almost collapsing. I don't want to say collapsing. That's too strong. But it's sort of like the pawn on the queen on h4, the pawn on f4, are, two pieces all dressed up with no place to go. They're just stuck on those squares. The queen doesn't, there's no supporting, there's no support for the queen, I want to say. The knight on f6, well, it's very strange. It does look like that despite his extra pawn, he's playing material down.
And he's taking with the c pawn instead of taking with the a pawn.
a6, a7 takes b6, far more natural. How about this unnatural move, Maurice?
This one is not looking good for him at all. He's saying after CD4 that he is much worse. Like this one is definitely bad. After this, we are going to see a rook land on e7. And how do you want to capture? You can capture with the pawn, of course. and suddenly it's this rook on the 7th rank, the 2 against 1, the weakness here. This pawn looks like it should be some kind of counterplay, should be valued at something. And the bishop looks like it's lording over the chessboard, saying much worse that this capture was bad. It's a bit confounding to me, but white does have a powerful rook in the position and a 2-to-1 advantage on this side.
All right, thank you for that, Maurice. Again, it's so confounding, right? A7 takes B6, which I think everybody's natural move, and A4?
A4 would have just, that would have been insane.
Right.
I kind of understand, I think Dariush's idea with taking with the C pawn. I don't think we would see C takes D4, C5. I think that's, I would have taken with the A pawn if I was going to do that. I think knight D5 idea is blocking the pawn.
Okay, definitely a mental challenge, but we have a very special guest in the studio, Alejandro.
Of course, he's just drawn his game. Peter Svidler is here with us.
Doubling his score.
Doubling his
Peter, I obviously couldn't avoid making mention of the fact that you've had a difficult tournament so far to this point. Draw today kind of stabilizes things a little bit. Tell us your thinking process coming into today.
Well, I just wanted to play a game of chess, and like Bishop D3 is not much, but you know, nobody really has a clear idea what to do against the knight over these days. And Sam did not have any particular prior experience against Bishop D3, but he played what I thought. Well, like I didn't prepare much, but I took a look at the file, and it seemed to me that exactly what he played is probably the sort of the sanest and the best way of replying, and true to form, Sam is generally well prepared everywhere, including lines which he, you know, by rights shouldn't be expecting on the day. And yeah, we got this really strange position in which not very much, I think, was happening at any point. But you know, the one interesting position we had is the one in which he repeated moves, I think, which is kind of curious. And I can see on your screen it says zeros everywhere, but it's very strange. It's like starting from here. I don't really know what either of us wants, which is a very confusing position to play because it seems like nothing much is happening. But I think it's slightly easier to play with black because, for instance, like rook c6, rook e8 is a way not to create threats, but maybe to improve, because not much is going on in the e file. But maybe if you double on the c file at some point, something will go to c4, and I think it's harder for me to imagine where my pieces are going. And I was, you know, considering my track record in this tournament in situations where there's a complicated position with not a lot of time on the clock, I was kind of worried. And honestly, I missed something when I saw Bishop d7, and I thought there is this repetition, which honestly I don't think I'm better. I don't think I should be avoiding repetitions. And there's also the move Queen f8, which is what I was going to discuss with you guys.
Before you get to that, our panel was surprised by the move h5. Were you?
I thought it's fine. I thought it's a very logical way to continue here. You don't really threaten h4, but you know, there's definitely some structures in which the idea of landing that pawn on h4 much later on could be an issue. And in fact, I wasn't very happy about having to play h3. I was choosing between h3 and king h1 in that position when I played h3, because you kind of have to have something as a reply to knight g4 eventually, and it's either stopping it altogether with h3, or you prepare bishop g1 as a reply. It's one of the two ways. And h3 was better in some tactical positions, but it also creates some potential dark square issues. And king h1 had other problems. Yeah, king h1, yeah, you had to calculate some things. But yeah, going into the final position, we actually kind of had a slight disagreement with Sam about that, because we spoke very briefly, and he said I don't think I can continue. But after knight d5, instead of after takes, where he played queen e6, queen e7, seemingly without you know, too much doubt, I think queen f8 is a very interesting option. And what I blundered, well, blundered is maybe a strong word compared to some other blunders I've made in this tournament. I wanted to go rook b4 here. And if rook takes c2, I think I have a very strong queen d1 move here, because rook b7, knight f3 check is very unclear. I really don't want to give up that dark square bishop. I think it's incredibly important for me to preserve the dark square bishop here. But I do have an intermediary move, queen d1 here, attacking the rook, keeping my attack on the b7 pawn, and also preserving, exactly, protecting the d4 bishop for, you know, eventual knight f3 check tactics. And this position I calculated, and I thought I'm, you know, not worse here at least. And then I realized that after rook b4 there is a very sane kind of non-forcing move. Instead of rook takes c2, you can play bishop c6 here. And in my mind, I thought, okay, this allows knight f6 check, so it cannot be good. But I lose the e4 pawn if I do that. And I don't think I have enough compensation. Despite winning the dark square bishop, the knight on e5 just does such a good job of blocking all of my, quote-unquote dark square initiative here that I don't think I can do this at all. And I think after bishop c6, Sam said he didn't think he could be better after something like c3. But this is exactly the structure I was going to mention, like bishop d5, e d5, queen e7, or rook c7, rook c7. I don't know which one is stronger. There's also knight d3 here, yeah, which I did not see. But even if we talk about, the structural assessment of this position, you go f5, you double on the e file, and you start making progress on the king side. And this is like a very classical, Scheveningen. I can't, I'm not in the right mood for this. It's a kind of a running gag, me trying to pronounce Scheveningen correctly, but I can't do it right now.
You got to gargle first.
I know. But yeah, like I feel like I'm obliged to do it every time, it comes up, but I'm just not in the right frame of mind. So like, I think bishop takes d5 is a huge, big threat there. And in view of that, after bishop c6, I was choosing between two positions. I can take on e5 and play bishop c4. Or I can play, actually, I think I can play bishop c4 straight away. So there's this position, which I couldn't really assess. Or, somewhat shockingly, I think I can go bishop c4, because after knight c4, bishop g7, once again, unless I've blundered something spectacular, which I've done many a time in this event, queen g7, knight f6 is strong, so you have to take with the king, and I go rook c4, bishop d5, queen c3, check. And I'm, I think, just in time to recapture on d5, and I suspect I don't lose this queen and rook. My king is definitely the unsafer one of the two, but I think there's little enough on the board for me to, to be able to start threatening some kind of c4 before c5 counterplay, so that some sort of simplification and draw probably results here. So that's one choice, and the other one, as I said, is to take on e5 and go bishop c4, which is quote-unquote more ambitious, but could also be incredibly bad if black manages to stabilize. Because like currently, I appear to be exerting some pressure on the f7 pawn, but like what happens after queen e8, let's say? I don't know, queen e8, queen g3, king h7 or something like this, yeah. Not blundering any tactics. And, my center could very easily just collapse here, and I could be in tremendous amounts of trouble. So my issue was I kind of blundered that going in, but after queen e1, bishop d7, I don't think I have a particularly good choice. So I tried making the move knight fd5, with that as confident of a mug as possible, and kind of, invite Sam to play queen e6, which he did. Once again, I can see on your screen that Machine is not particularly impressed about queen f8 for whatever reason. But yeah, for me, in particular, the way this has been going, I kind of liked seeing queen e6 there.
You were a last-minute replacement for Alexander Grischuk, as Dariush was also a last-minute replacement in this tournament. Do you feel like both of you have been affected by that for the same reasons? You didn't know you were going to play, you had to jump in at the last second, you couldn't prepare for the players.
It's not really that. I can't speak for Dariush, but with me, I think I do like playing in like when I told you before the tournament that I like playing these fields. I'm not lying, but it's incredibly important for me in particular these days to start well, and the combinations of, it's kind of weird in this tournament to complain about pairings, but starting with 3 blacks out of the first 4 against the top 3, like I'm playing the tour participants so far, not really playing. I mean, today was, I think, my first game against the fellow wild card. So a slightly softer start. Or specifically, I think if I don't lose to MBL, like my sort of general state of mind is just so much better compared that possibly that would have made some difference, because I don't think it's even lack of preparation. I'm just nowhere near playing anywhere. My best game is not this. Hopefully, I would like to think that this is not. Yeah, I would like to think this is not my A game, and yeah. the importance of a good start in a tournament like this, really, for me, I think for everybody, but for me in particular, just cannot be overstated. It's just, it makes such a huge difference.
Yasser, any questions?
No, other than Peter, enjoy your rest day, recharge the batteries, and give him hell in the second half.
Yeah.
What do you plan to do for the rest of it?
For a given definition of hell, yeah?
Yeah.
No plans so far. I don't know, whatever presents itself, really, Laundry is probably
very important. But also, you did go elk watching.
Yeah, but I don't think we were doing that again. I can't really force Alejandro to. Although, force is maybe a strong word because it was enjoyable, but
I like the elks. We had a good time over there.
We did have a good time, but we've done that. The check, there's already
checklist.
Yeah,
there's a few more things around St. Louis. I'll have to show you around.
Yeah, there's the. We'll see what can be done. Yeah.
All right. Well, begin your rest now, and then take entirety of tomorrow to get ready for the next day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. How is your? Never mind. I was going to ask how your student was doing, but we can come back after our break.
Yeah, we're going to take a small break here, and we will come back with the rest of the action in round 5, just before the rest day. Don't go anywhere. We have 3 more games of chess left in today's round. Welcome back. We are here on the 5th round of the Sinquefield Cup. 2 results already on the books.
2 draws.
We have 2 draws. Peter's Villain with the white pieces drawing against Sam Shanklin. And of course, we had the first result of the day, a very big one for the standing, especially with the Grand Chess Tour. Wesley Saw drawing against Richard Rapport. Let's jump straight into the action as we see what we have left for you guys. And I think the most exciting game, bar none, will be the one between Jeffrey Xiong, young Jeffrey, who lost yesterday against Dariusz Fierz. He's playing world number 2, Fabiano Caruana. Yasser, how are we doing there?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think Jeffrey actually has turned the game around. When we left it around these parts where Bishop F3, kind of an artificial move. We really didn't like it, but on the other hand, there was an issue in White's position. That issue was a weak G4 square, Knight G4, Knight E3 on Black's agenda. Jeffrey sought to stop that maneuver with the move Bishop F3, but after these trades were executed, it actually turns out that, well, Black just has a nice advantage in space and was actually much better. Now here, a rather controversial move for me was the decision to play the move Bishop E6. It's clear that Fabi just wants to castle and not suffer the consequences of a lost pawn on F6. Something like Rook A7, just simply defending the knight, preparing castles. I think this is just a nice, comfortable advantage for Black. That wasn't the choice. Oh, Bishop E6, okay, nothing terrible or anything like that. Then came this move, G5. Well, always I ask myself, where am I going to put my king as Black? I play moves like B5, A4. I think to myself, well, I'm probably not going to go queenside. I see moves like G5, and I go, well, am I sure I'm going to go kingside? Knight D8. That move I really didn't understand. Knight came to B4, and suddenly the knight is looking at, the knight is suddenly looking towards the D5 square. And by the way, you put a knight on D5, you open up the queen to the B pawn, and Rook B8, Knight D5, well, say hello. That knight is actually a monster, especially in terms of the F6 pawn and the chances of an tactical accident happening. Castles, a whole mishmash of strange decisions by Fabi, including up to castles and H4. And I'm saying, hey, Jeffrey is taking over the game in a very, very big way. In fact, I'm looking at this position. I just don't like anything that I've seen Fabi do in the last few minutes. Sorry.
The one that baffles me the most, bar none, is Knight to D8. What is the point of this move? I understand you want to maybe reroute the knight at some point, put it on D6. That all sounds great. But I haven't castled yet.
Right. The great knight tour, and that's a lot of moves, too.
Especially because this knight on C6 is performing an important function. It's keeping that knight on D3 at bay, not allowing it to go to B4 and subsequently D5. I don't get the timing of this move. Knight D8 instead of... Was there a problem with castling?
No, and if you were going to castle, maybe that was the time to do it. After Knight D8, however, it also precipitated the move Rook B8. Now, when you've opened up the half-open C file, where does the rook belong? Certainly not on the defensive square B8. Knight comes to D5. Castle's a move probably now made out of necessity, but now you look at this and you go H4, oops. Wow. So, you start rejecting lines, that start something like H4, G4, F5, double question mark, Rook takes F5. Well, this is child's play because you've got the intermezzo, Queen takes G4 check, and you can pick up your sacrificed rook and 2 pawns to the good. So there's no G4. You look at G5, H4, you go Knight H4. Now you start averting your eyes because we know the power of the knights on F5 on those kinds of squares.
Knight on F5 and D5
posting up against the king.
D7 and D8.
No. That. So that leaves basically the only one move, Queen G4, and you're just hoping that after Queen G4, something doesn't go seriously wrong for black.
He actually played the move knight f7, not queen g4.
Okay.
I think queen g4, even a move like king g2 is
Exactly.
extremely dangerous.
Yeah, no, but even here, this looks really like, well, okay, something has gone terribly, terribly wrong. How about the simple knight h2, angling for knight g4? You know, putting the knight on f5 is good. You know what else would be really good on the f5 square?
Yeah,
how about a rook? Yeah, a rook looks good.
Yeah, I think you start having to play.
Queen could potentially h5.
This is ugly.
I mean, I'm just seeing, you know, a lot of one-way traffic, and it's in white's favor. Knight, I'm by no means is knight h2 the only move either. It might just be that h3 takes g4, and some very, very direct play against black's king is, like, for example, if you go takes, and if you go, for example, just throwing this out there, queen g4, first of all, pay attention to knight e7 check, right? Like, where on earth are you going to put your king? You want to put it on g7? You want to put it on the h file? You start saying, you know, so it looks to us like Jeffrey all the way, Maurice.
All day, all the way. We don't have to even question her instincts in their position.
Yeah.
What the heck did Fabi do to his position? That one looks very dangerous. Can the youngster deliver a knockout punch, though? Take a look at this game, and I want to bring your attention to the time, the clock situation, because it is ultra dangerous for Lanier right now, as Shakhriyar has managed to maintain the pressure move after move after move in this game. And with those two bishops, particularly the bishop on e5 just lording over the board where it stands, and the fact that black hasn't figured out how to get his bishop on c8 into the game, we're now at move 23, and the bishop on c8 did not move. Finally, it has moved. Finally got a chance to make a move.
Bishop to d7, yep.
Pretty good move. It develops the bishop, of course.
At last, as we have a very nice image there of Derek drinking his water. But okay, bishop d7, the whole point is you're not blundering a bishop. Rook takes d7, queen takes b1, check, returns a favor. But is there a follow-up to his pressure that he's been applying, Maurice?
I'm sorry, I'm just checking. Is this just equal, or what am I missing if you take on g7 right now?
Bishop takes g7, king takes g7.
And then I take on g6?
I like this.
And then after hg,
and
queen
check.
e5, he picks up his bishop.
Can I get my bishop back?
but that's just a pawn.
No.
No, I just got my pawn back.
Right, that was just a trade I meant to say.
So then it's just equal after this?
And this is dead drawn.
This is dead, okay.
Yeah.
All right, I just flashed in my mind.
Right, like, could you be winning?
It's the, what alternatives does white have to this, though? Because I am one move away from consolidating my position. Even bishop a4 might be a threat.
Precisely. So let's just imagine, like, takes, right? Takes, queen. So what you're trying to say in all of this is...
Bishop takes g7 on the board, by the way.
Bishop takes g7 on the board. In this type of play, you're saying, okay, we're playing bishops of opposite colors, and I'm putting all my eggs in the basket of going h5, h6, and, you know, dark square maintenance, dark square. But you could lose. You could just simply lose with this attempt. That was why we saw the move bishop takes g7. That is on the board.
I wonder if...
You mentioned bishop a4, right? Sorry, Maurice.
Well, I'm just saying, after bishop g7, I don't think Lanier overlooked this move, did he?
No.
Because he didn't move yet. I would think, well, maybe he's just considering making sure everything's okay, that there's no serious danger.
I would say zero other moves in this position.
Well, I would say that he is very aware that king takes g7 is good enough for a draw. He may just be considering.
That's dangerous.
Bishop,
that's dangerous for sure. Because bishop f6 is playable.
Also bishop d4 in case.
Yeah, bishop d4, bishop takes d1. I can get queen takes d4, and I don't have to resign. But
this is the line. He's going straight into this line. which recovers his pawn that he had sacrificed, but leads to an ending that we think should be just fine for both sides.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, then we have to give Lanier a great deal of credit, because a lot of grandmasters, when they face an all-out, you know, firebrand raging Shahryar Mamydarov, don't survive.
Yep, but this one, well into surviving territory.
I'm telling you, it was hubris on our part to extol the number of decisive games.
We warned the producers, we warned the director, don't do it.
Don't do it.
But here we are.
We're
If there was
looking
a
at
time
another
to do
draw.
it, that was the time to do it. Because after that, we know we get back to some kind of normalcy. Here he could play the move rook to e7 to try to keep a little sliver of a game alive.
Why not? Pressure on the f7. Pardon me. f7 square, queen f6 up next.
Right.
Can black do it? Well, there's.
I mean, black's going to be able to put a rook on f8 to defend.
Don't go pawn grabbing. In this case, you will be defeated.
I assume there are more than one ways to defend against this, right? Rook e7, queen b1 check looks okay. Do you have a real threat, by the way?
Outside of queen f6, I didn't see anything too particular. Just
h5 is a little annoying.
All right, can I play queen f5 and be professional about it?
You will get yourself into a pawn down, rook and pawn ending.
Am I?
But
No,
you think,
Is it,
no, rook
is it a
d2
pawn
is
down?
coming.
what?
Rook d2
Rook d2 is coming.
Rook
no?
d2 is coming. I don't think I'm a pawn down here. Let's just show this for the audience. You take on f5, I take back with the e pawn, I think. Rook takes b7, and then after rook d2. That forks both of white's pawns on a2 and f2, and I don't see a way for you to retain your extra pawn.
No, I'm
Rook
zigging
e7
in.
played. Rook e7
Rook e7 is on
has
the
been
board.
played.
But queen b1 check, and, well, I'm not going to just let that queen stay posted so powerfully on the f5 square. And there we see a little hesitation.
But rook
Shaq
e7.
has a very intriguing way. I'm not used to that, seeing the grandmaster play and hold the piece for count 1, count 2, count 3, and now I'll let it go. I mean, I've watched you, for example, playing here in the club, numerous. Once you've made your decision, you know you're going to play rook e7. It happens. You execute it. That's it. Let's go.
Yeah, but Mehmet is
Like, really?
a bit hesitant there.
Right?
Maurice,
right.
how is my student doing?
You don't want to know. You don't want to know, but kudos to Maxime, because he got knocked out of first place, and now he's coming right back. I mean, just time to come back, because nobody else is winning their games. Fabi in big trouble. He might get knocked back.
Right, yeah.
And MVL might take his place. It looks like a little rotating leadership board, except for one Wesley So. It's like solid. This is a very good game, bounce back game for Maxime. Take a look. His bishop, we talked about the strong piece, showing its teeth, but allowing knight d5, because after all, he gets this rook on the 7th. The rook went back to d8, rook to e1, and oh no, c4. What a move. Wow. The point is completely unclear as to why he decided to put that there. I guess he was threatening rook to d3. Must be the only reason. Like, why would you play this move, c4? And Maxime said, go right ahead, play that move and see what happens to you, because now this move is met by, boom, a nasty hit. Rook takes on, queen takes on f4. You can't take this and think you're going to survive because of that check, and anything else, of course, queen takes will be the same. Thank you very much, as the rooks become monstrous on the 7th. You just gave away a pawn, and you're getting demolished. Rook e4 is simply a beastly move. The c-pawn is about to drop. The pawn you just put on c4 is going to go off the board any second. You don't want to move your rook away and stay passive, because now that your rook's off the line, well, why not come into your house? And these are not rooks you want to see yourself fighting against. The security of the king. You mentioned this, Alejandro. When you have major piece endings like this, the king security matters. And that pawn sitting on f4 right now, that one has weakened Black's king, while White's king is sitting very snugly on the G1 square. And B5.
Well, you have to defend the pawn.
Well, okay, that's his response.
He is inviting A4.
He sure is. Just like that. I ain't seen A4 get played any quicker than that. I mean, he's like, I'm hunting actually, rabbits.
Known as quite the bullet player, too. I mean, that A4 move came not with Shaq hesitation style, but
not
instantly.
At all.
Maurice, if you don't mind me asking, Alejandro and I were looking at this position actually before we went on break. After knight d5, and I recommended rook takes g7
instead of rook takes a7.
Instead of rook takes a7, and we were looking at that briefly, and it seemed to us that this was also advantage, and Black's king is pretty compromised, we want to say.
You guys were correct according to the engine here.
That advantage White,
White
because of the compromised king. But,
yep.
But was rook g7 less of a move?
Rook a7 is better.
That's what I would.
Better.
Rook a7
just better.
Just better.
That's it.
Just plain
He's pretty
better.
good.
He's pretty good.
He's pretty good at chess.
He grabbed the pawn.
And we have a result as Shakhriyar Mamedyarov has drawn his game against Lanier Dominguez. We did see that end game coming from a mile away. And everything came off the board. A draw here between these two players. A good result for Lanier with the black pieces. Still up there at the leader.
Yeah, I know. This was a great success with the black pieces. Lanier, well, tied for first. And if he keeps up this kind of form, who's to say that he can't win the Sinquefield Cup?
Absolutely.
We talked about a wild card winning a Rapid and Blitz, the very first time that a wild card here in St. Louis has won. Magnus Carlsen was one a Rapid,
Rapid and Blitz as a wild card player indeed.
As a wild card.
But no wild card has ever come remotely close to winning a Sinquefield Cup.
Or a classical, I want to say. So this is impressive stuff. Good work today by Lanier.
Absolutely.
As he wraps up a draw. And by the
This
way,
is a bad result for Shakhriyar.
Yes.
Because remember,
where he came from, this crazy gambit position. Yes, Maurice, sorry.
Remember, Wesley looks like he's going to wrap this up.
Right.
Right? Because he just has to finish no worse than third place. This is the standings we're looking at right now. Shakhriyar is almost 6 points behind Wesley. He needs to win this tournament, basically, because Wesley's not coming in like 8th place now. We know that's not going to happen. So Shakhriyar needs to somehow figure out a way to win this tournament and have Wesley finish in 4th or worse. And with this score right now, he's literally -2, or Wesley has 2 wins. He's got to pick up the pace to somehow catch Wesley, pass Wesley, fly by everybody else, and prove that he's the one who's going to win this tournament with only 4 rounds remaining. But if we look at that stat one more time, all right, let's assume it's off the table. Wesley's going to win the Grand Chess Tour. There's a second place finish that's worth $50,000, $50K. And look at his lead over Maxime. If he says, okay, Wesley's out the way, I'm not worried about him. I've got to finish ahead of this Maxime Vachier-Lagrave character. Right. That's $50K on the table, right? But right now, Maxime, if he wins, he's going to go back into the lead, and Maxime's going to be like, okay, nobody's catching Wesley, but hey, dude, you're going to see the back of my car, all right? I'm going to win this $50K and come in second. That 0.5 matters, and all Shakhriyar has to do is just finish ahead of Maxime, or even tied with Maxime. This is all he needs, is a tie or ahead. That's it, little ahead. If Maxime goes a little ahead of him, it's over. So he was the winner in Bucharest, doing really well, felt really solid, but since then he's faded back. And remember, Maxime wasn't Maxime dead last in Bucharest?
He tied for last.
Tied for last. Tied for last. So you win and get 13. He ties for last and gets 1.5. And since then, he's just been steaming until it's like this, and he's about to overtake you and take the $50K. What a tale of a turnaround that would be.
And let's not forget that despite the fact that they're playing, let's say, for second place, there's somebody from the outside saying, hey,
I don't have a lot of Grand Chess Tour points, but if I do really well in this tournament, maybe I can hope for third or second place. Remember, third is $25,000.
Right.
It's a certain Fabiano Caruana. I want to check out his game, how he is doing against Jeffrey Xiong. We see a capture on G5, which, in my opinion, was very surprising. I liked the 3Fs theory of Maurice, and I didn't quite see why this was forced or fabulous.
Right. We just left it at the move knight at f7. I was more or less kind of drumming for knight h2 exactly at this moment. The idea is to leave this peshki on the board. That's the weakness that I really want to focus my attention on. I want to go rook f5, knight g4, double rooks, and really pound that pawn for all it's worth, maybe even playing queen h5. If I could play also, for example, I'm just going to put a very bad move on the board, queen h5, I might just sneak in here on g6 as well. So when I saw this move by Jeffrey, hg, I thought, wow, you're really letting Fabi off the hook a little bit. That f6 pawn isn't as weak on g5 as it was on f6.
It's also opening the rook on f8.
Right.
Yep.
So I wasn't happy about that trade, but Jeffrey had a very concrete idea. He just wants to double up on the f line. And
well, couldn't you do that without taking on g5, though?
Maybe, but I mean, this is pretty forceful stuff going on here. Was it a good decision?
Forceful.
Was it a good decision?
Glad
Maurice?
you brought up the 3 Fs. Is it forced or fantastic? Because if it's not, then that third F you don't want to know. This is not ideal. He still has the edge, but he did offer an extra possibility. What does this h-pawn do on h4? It guards the g5 square. It guards that square so that when this happens, and now the move rook f2, which he's played, black does have the option of playing the move g4, knight h4, and potentially knight g5. That gives him a chance to bring his knight to one of these squares. Now, maybe he's evaluated this and said, I think I'm good here. I think I'm still great. I maybe put my rook on f5, and you're in trouble. He might actually be right, actually. Now, looking at this, this does look like this is a weakness here. But if he had done it with just rook f2, then, well, sorry, H4. I am here. Rook f2, this is simply not a move. I mean,
wow. You just lose, right?
This engine's even giving killing blows like this one and this one, and taking that and smashing you completely.
Wow.
So you just don't even have that move. That's an amazing line. So that would have been pretty straightforward, but I think he's assessing right here, this is enough in his opinion. He's going to double, and what is Fabi supposed to do about it, as he's just going to get what he wants? But if he had kept that tension, he would have gotten even more. But this still looks strong, it turns out, giving his opponent a little extra opportunity, but it looks like it is white for choice regardless.
Neither Alejandro nor I like this trade on g5. What was the number one move?
Rook f2.
Rook f2 immediately.
Yeah. Just play rook f2. The guy's helpless.
How did it evaluate knight h2? By the way, with the idea of knight g4, rook f5.
It gives knight d6. I think it's not one of the top moves. Your knight h2. It gives knight d6 guarding.
God, it looks so visually
square
tempting.
And little pressure on this pawn, but it's still better for.
Yeah, this still looks
better for white,
exactly,
without question. But
okay, so rook h2 it is, and for Jeffrey, I have to say, starts with 3 draws, very, very solid. Plays an extraordinary game, almost saves the game, epic at the end. Man, how do you recover from a loss like that? Up against #2 player in the world, and now he's playing fabulously well. Youth, man.
They're strong and they're resourceful.
They snap back, and Maurice.
So we talk about this issue with preparation. You cannot over-rely on preparation. You know you're prepared, fine, but know that your opponent's going to play some strange move at some point, and then you want to keep in rhythm. You want to get out of memorize mode. I memorize these moves, and I got to get into play mode. You want to somehow be in play mode even with your memorized moves. Somehow get into a little bit of a flow so that when that unusual move arrives, it's almost as though you've been thinking through the reasons behind your previous move and not just starting to think for the first time as you turn off memory and go into an analytic mode. I'm making this point because up to this point, Dariush had been blitzing all his moves. He's sitting after 17 moves with more time than he started with. 1 hour, 33 minutes, and 39 seconds. He started with an hour and a half. This move, knight d2, was a move that he wasn't familiar with, and he continued to play. 13 moves he made from the point of queen h4, and after a4, he's down to 8.5 minutes. With 10 moves to go in what is a very bad position for him. So
losing, actually.
It's very bad. It's just everything is collapsing. He's going to lose one of those queenside pawns, and then there's going to be a passed pawn plus his bad king, and he has no counterplay whatsoever. The pawn on f4 is blocking his counterplay against White's king. White's going to leave it there unless he's winning it and winning the game at the same time. So this position is just dead lost. Look at the clock times. MVL was the one who's thrown on his back foot. He handled the preparation marvelously with this idea of knight d2. What an amazing Knight's Tour move, if you will. And here he goes. Great position for him. We're going to be the theme of this round. If we have two decisive results, call up George Koltanowski or email heaven or something. Maybe he'll say, nah, he's the kind of guy who's partying somewhere else. But look, this Knight Tour we talked about, this knight on d2, started on b1, went to d2, and toured the board, e4, g3, went back here and came back here, and then c4 and took. We saw that whole path that this knight took. Young Jeffrey had his own knight tour. This knight on d5 was the one that was on g1. Right. And it went to f3, it went to d4, went to b3, went to c1, went to d3, went to b4, now sitting pretty on d5. Yeah. So if both these games are decisive, it will be the Knight Tour round for sure, with those knights just dancing around the board. Fabi in big trouble with 13 minutes to make 12 moves. Jeffrey's not that much ahead of him on the clock, though, at 14 minutes, but the first time Jeffrey is now ahead on the clock. And Fabi knows this king is so exposed, and White with beautiful squares for his pieces.
Thank you, Maurice. And I'm sitting here looking at Fabi's position. The more I look at it, the less I like it. But now, having said that, one of the things I find really remarkable about our tour participants is their extraordinary resourcefulness, even under the greatest of pressure. Like Wesley defended that game against Fabi almost as if it was just
like a
routine,
breeze.
right?
Like he does this every day.
And I thought it was a really, really hard slog. Like, you hold that position, you're proud of your gifted defensive skills. I'm looking at this and I'm saying, one of the things that these guys do is they find their opportunities to hold. And I'm looking at Alejandro. Please help me out here, because I'm blind. I'm seeing rook f1, king g2, and much, much, much worse things happening for Fabi. What's your defensive move?
My instinct would be to move the king to g7.
Okay.
And start some sort of counterplay on the h-file, something along these lines, hoping I'm not losing. I assume you'll play rook af1.
I will, of course.
And I was hoping to get in queen h3.
Very important, because the desirable rook h8 might just be met by some immediate sacrifices, and the queen will dominate over the two rooks in such a position after knight takes d4. Hence, your move queen h3 makes a lot of sense. But I was going to really, I hope, rock your world with this move and simply saying, you know, please open up your king, you know, like, do me a favor, take this pawn. You just heard Maurice saying the pawn on f4 was blocking Derek's attack. The pawn on g3 is blocking White's attack against the king. So,
and I was hoping to go back
to
e6, I think, because if I go to g4, knight takes d4,
I was hoping this was,
this works, right?
This was a tactic that would steal a pawn.
I think it steals the game.
And steals the game.
Whoa.
Okay,
is that real?
Yeah, knight f5 check, and rook takes e2.
No, queen e2.
Knight
What?
F5 check.
96.
Oh
check.
no, you're gonna make another knight mate or
No,
knight E6. Knight E6 and
please.
E7.
E6 and knight E7, whatever you do.
Oh, that's too pretty.
Yeah, yeah,
That's too
yeah.
beautiful.
Look at that.
And the rooks.
That's really pretty.
That's a nice pattern. Nice catch, Maurice. Oh, that's
And
really nice.
By the way, Fabi has played a move. He didn't play the Maurice
G6.
move. He didn't play our move. He played knight B6.
Okay, after all, this knight,
knight on
is,
D5. He's very powerful.
Is the crazy powerful knight. So knight B6.
Maurice, you got some insights on this move.
Not this move. The other game is going to be over soon. Maxime is going to win. Rook D3 was played now. This was his point behind the move, C4. And boom, queen takes. He no doubt, I mean, he must have seen queen take. Right, he must have seen queen takes. You cannot take because of rook to E8. We know that. He took with the queen, rook takes. He now guarded the square G7 because he knows a rook's coming down, plus his rook is hanging as well. And now Maxime took.
And takes.
No, rook G8 is on the board. He has not taken yet.
Yes, he has.
Yes, he has.
He just took. Right. He just took and took. And now we're waiting to see.
Rook C7.
He played rook to C7. And he's threatening to just push. I mean, that's.
No, I think you have to play rook B3.
So rook B3 will be forced. And then he can guard this pawn because you can't get it back. You're not going to be able to play this move because of this and the back rank mate. You're going to find yourself down 2 pawns.
That's right. That's
2
over.
pawns in this position right here. Looks like we have a frozen board here. Okay.
No.
Let me go back to the analysis to show what I was talking about. A takes B5, rook takes C3. By the way, he could have just pushed this guy. You get behind it, and then you can just push him again and prepare takes. I mean, you can play C3 if you like. He goes here.
H6.
And you play H6, and then he goes here.
Yep.
And you just cry.
A8.
That would have been
A little easier.
That would have been easier.
That's very straightforward.
Very straight. He played very quickly with his variation, but he could have just played B6, B7, and the game is over.
I think the game is over.
It's over anyway after rook C7, no doubt. But pawn could have just gone down the board. Nevertheless, he's going to capture the second pawn and maintain his B pawn. This game is done.
Done. Yeah.
No doubt about it. Great game by Maxime, dealing with opening prep and playing like the all-star player that he is.
Yeah, so you had mentioned that you had seen few games in this tournament that were just absolutely perfect.
Right.
And I'm going to throw this one in there as well. I cannot imagine
from Maxime's point of view, from being hit in the opening with a series of novelties and answering them in the fashion he did. He put his knight on E4, knight E4 to D2, very difficult move. Knight C4, knight takes B6, a lot of
rook takes A7 instead of rook G7.
7, right?
Not even a slightly dubious.
Maybe B6, right? But that's, what are we talking? Move 35, right?
At this point, you're just choosing which line to make him resign. That doesn't count.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Wow.
Something else dramatic is going on in the game between Jeffrey and Fabi. It looks like Fabi has played a horrible mistake, maybe a category of blunder. Knight, in this position, we're saying he's in trouble. He's got to try to defend. He's decided to challenge the knight on D5 with knight to B6. And check out this move, guys. Knight H4.
What?
What a move. Yeah, what?
So if I take
the point is, if you take this rook F6 and there's a rook G6 and a queen H5, knock, knock, you're dead line coming. The queen has to give itself up. You're about to lose your queen, and there's no way to defend against this check and that check. Straightforward. Done. Game over. So that means after knight H4, you could try this move, simple capture.
Recapture.
And if you capture back here, knight F5, and suddenly there's this threat, that's big. There's this queen coming here. There's that rook coming here, and there's that king that's going to die.
Yeah.
This game is done. This is Crush City. Fabi in huge trouble. If Jeffrey finds knight h4 right now, what a brilliant move that would be, and the game is over, like over.
That's the kind of move that you want to play, but somehow you start seeing ghosts. I wanted to put a knight on f5. I just didn't know how to get there. Knight h4. Wow, to be that tactically alert at this point. I mean, after you see this move, knight b6, you start thinking queen takes b5, which he has done, by the way. He grabbed the pawn. You start.
You have his membership ready, right?
Right. But knight knight h4 visually.
That's just an amazing move.
Oh, that's just a beautiful move. But queen takes b5. It's very hard if you don't see that move not to take the pawn.
So how does the line go here? I assume that knight d6, I attack your queen and hope that you have to go back.
Yeah,
Queen d3,
back.
and I have so many weaknesses around my king. I want
your
to
best
take,
move?
Yeah.
G5, G7.
You allow me to do that.
Right,
I'm so happy.
Sorry, but you had a...
Maybe I have to go queen g6. No, not queen g6. Definitely not that move.
Our viewers would like to see why Alejandro's conception is a bad move. Don't give me a royal fork. Don't go to g6. G6 is like the taboo square, you know, a landmine.
No, it still looks horrible.
Still looks good for Jeffrey for sure.
No. Sorry, guys.
Do it again. Why?
Queen b5, knight d6. Black is back in the game big time.
How? What do you mean? Queen d3?
Queen takes b5, knight d6, queen d3.
Yes.
Knight takes on d5.
Yes.
Why?
And queen f6.
Queen f6. And you've got threats of
e5,
e4.
Direct threats, g4 and e4 threats in this position. Your knight on f3 is pinned, cannot move, and it's impossible to stop e4.
So just a second, what does that mean? It means I have to go all the way back to e2, a move I resisted. I didn't want to go this far back. And after queen e2?
Queen e2, black is even giving g4, which is now exotic. The evaluation now is concrete. Black is no longer even maybe a little bit.
I don't believe that.
G4?
Okay, well, what do you do? G4.
Okay. I guess I move away. Knight d2. Let's just see.
Knight d2, trade.
Trade on f2, trade on f2.
What do you want to do?
Queen takes f2, sorry.
Queen takes f2. He takes your pawn, for starters.
Knight takes e4, you mean?
Takes e4. He takes this one. Now black's better.
What?
Just that, it's that simple. Now black's better.
Now black's better. Black is playing for rook f8, knight e3. White doesn't have the advantage.
He played the move knight takes d5 instead. That's the move that we have on the board. And Jeffrey very quickly, and to me very surprisingly, took with the queen.
Because he did have the option after queen,
Yeah,
after
pawn takes was crushing.
Knight takes d5,
Pawn
he
takes
could
was
have taken
crushing.
with the pawn.
And how about queen takes?
Not equal. These guys are in time pressure. These guys are in heavy time pressure and not evaluating a position anymore.
Okay.
They're feeling the clock.
And why was e takes d5 crushing?
E takes d5, what do you do?
Say queen g4.
Queen, somewhere. Right?
Yeah,
queen g4, queen c6.
Just to pick a move.
Coming to the party.
Uh-oh. That's a queen g6 check, oversight. I was gonna take this pawn and take this knight, but let me show why this would fail. Epic.
Wow.
Yeah, oops, rook h2, got me.
Under pressure of the moment, they're just exchanging mistakes. I'm sorry to be the messenger.
No. But I mean, but these mistakes are very understandable, or very human moves. If you don't see the move knight h4, queen takes b5, grabbing the pawn, it feels like solace. Personally, by the way, another move I would have been very attracted to was rook on a1 to f1. You know, talk about a piece that hasn't gotten into the game. I mean, like, isn't it time to bring the rook on a1 into the party? So yeah, some strange moves.
There's
Maurice, please.
There's a story that was told to me by Frederick Friedel, who is the founder of ChessBase, a German
company
icon, is Frederick Fiedel. And he tells me a story that Gary Kasparov was playing in a tournament, I forget where, and he was watching the game with what was now the new fangled thing, which was a new engine, right? The computers are starting to get strong enough. So we're talking about, obviously, the 20th century before today, before the 2000s. And Frederick had this engine, and he was watching the game, and there was a moment in the game where the engine goes, oop, Gary's winning. And Frederick is like, whoa, Gary's winning. And the move was a funny-looking type move. Wasn't just obvious. And then Gary didn't play the move. The game goes on. There was some result. Maybe Gary won or drew. I don't know what happened. I don't remember. The point was this. He said he came to Gary afterwards, and he said to him, you were just winning at this point. And Gary went. As soon as he heard he was winning, he went, that's the move. Like, just the fact that there was a winning move sitting, now being alerted to the fact that there is a winning move, he instantly knew what the move was. He's like, oh, don't tell me it's this. And then he went, oh, da-da-dum, and he knew it. And that's when he said they understood adjournments were dead forever, right? Because engines would change the future of the game. Now, for those who are growing up with it, engines just seem like a normal thing. They had radically changed chess by their presence. And this, if Jeffrey had been told right here, after knight b6, you're winning, right? Then he would have said, whoa, what is, wait a minute, I'm winning. And he'd start searching the board for ideas and no doubt come up with the move knight h4, because he's been told he's winning now. So you're not looking for some basic, no. You're looking for the killer kind of blow. And what would that be? It would have to be something he would figure out associated with this move, rook f6, because where else would you be winning? It's not going to be knight c7. You look around, you don't see anything. So he would have found knight h4, but because he doesn't know that he's winning, that's the thing. Viewers sitting at home with their engines on, I'm here with an engine on because that's my job in this broadcast. The engine is telling us the move, and you go, oh, why don't you see that? Well, because first of all, the engine's telling you. Second of all, you're sitting relaxed. We're not in the middle of a game in front of a big audience playing for thousands, tens of thousands of dollars. There's a pressure of the moment, and you don't know that you're winning. You don't know. And without that knowledge, you don't necessarily see that move. So this is what happened to both of them. They're just playing on their own with the clock ticking down, a lot of pressure on both at this moment in time.
Less than 4 minutes.
4 minutes left for Fabi to make 10 moves. And he's finally traded on d5. And I think a little too much respect, though, from Jeffrey for Fabi. I think if I was sitting across from the board, Jeffrey would have been thinking, I'm not trading anything down. I'm looking for winning lines. I'm trying to beat you. Right. But he's given Fabi a huge chance now to save the game. And Fabi, he'll take it. Thank you very much. While the rest of the field's like, come on, Jeffrey. Why don't you knock this guy down?
Out of first place, absolutely. Just on that note, also, yesterday we brought Richard Rapport in the position and to set and said, okay, Richard, you missed a win. And the moment he heard the fact that I've got a win here, he immediately sees Queen a6.
Not even a hesitation.
Yeah, of course.
Of course.
Right. All he needs is that, like just alert.
And that's all it takes.
Right.
It really is the difference.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a difference maker. No question about it. Now that we've been alerted, that's the 2 pawns. There's nothing to discuss there.
This is dead. Maxime is going to win this game. He's 2 pawns up. King is weak.
How is...
it gets worse.
Rook g6.
Play g6, and it's just terrible. Now your king is fully... I said the king was weak. Right. I didn't mean this weak. This is just pure exposure right now. Maxime knows this is going to be all she wrote. No question about it. And he's only got 41 seconds.
No, they made move 40.
Oh, move 40's been made. Okay, well, that was his move 40.
Yeah. Adjust.
Yeah, sometimes it happens underneath the pawns and the pieces. There's some, it's a heavy felt, it's a nice soft heavy felt, but sometimes it just frizzles a little bit and you get these, you know, like little strings of linen and you just have to take them out. It's bothersome, I can't explain it.
The game of Jeffrey and Fabi, it's changing pretty dramatically.
I was about to say, when we
there?
left it, we saw the trade of queens, AB, AB. Now remember how in the game of MVL, MVL broke up Derek's pawn structure by playing the move A4.
Right.
Well, Fabi says, hey, you know what? I'm trying to draw the game. Let me play the move D3, break up the team over here, and trade pawns. So that's what he has done with the move D3. And if we do continue, let's just say takes, rook takes, we can see how, from Fabi's point of view, you know, keep trading off those pawns, his chances of saving the game really go up. I like his decision.
I don't really see any problems for black at this point.
After this. Well, let's say we start with this move, rook D1. So I'm
not even sure that helps you that much.
I was hoping that
it did.
Well, yes, that it helped me, but also that I did have a threat of exploiting the pin.
So just to point it out to our audience, if you, for example, go rook takes d3,
I'll go knight takes e5,
and I do still have, I cannot take the knight because there's a rook on f8 hanging.
That's the exploitation I had hoped for, yes.
And if I go rook g3 check after knight takes e5,
that I move my king attacking the rook.
Exactly.
And, oops, sorry, I attack the rook as well as this knight on f7. So rook takes b3, rook f1. You have to respect knight g5 and knight e5. I'm assuming you're moving the rook?
I think rook d8 looks like what it makes more sense to me because you attack the d5 pawn.
Fair enough.
Could have put the rook somewhere else, but I like rook d8.
Okay, so here, let me attack your rook.
I could consider taking on d3. I don't actually know what's wrong with that. I think rook b7, knight e4 might be a bit unpleasant, but
I'm trying to lure your pieces to squares that I might be able to exploit them. Here I'm not 100% sure that's the case, though. Knight e4, knight d6, I don't see how I can, you know, really use the f-file
it looks
in a meaningful way.
Yeah.
So after rook d8, let me just try it again. Just another move. How about knight h2? For some reason, I've been drawn for a long time, like a long time ago, to this move, knight h2. Here I'm attacking the knight on f7. You can't, well, you can go there, but defending the knight, but why walk into a potential check?
So I'm going to give you guys a little pop,
please,
little prod.
Okay.
In this position, White has a cool move right now, a move that is not winning, but
instead of rook f1.
Yeah, but it's a cool move.
It's a cool move.
Yeah.
It's got teeth.
It's got some teeth.
You're not going to say rook a4 and rook g4. No, that's way too slow. Right?
You're right.
It's way too slow.
Something
rook
cool.
a6 and rook g. No. Rook a6.
Rook a6.
Rook a6, threatening knight takes g5 and rook g6. Oh, that's a visual.
Well, it's just threatening rook g6 and rook f6, and you get the same doubling with your rook in front.
And not giving you the chance of moving your rook away. Okay.
Impressive.
That's a nice move, taking advantage of the open A file.
So let's show it. I take on d3.
Right, rook takes d3. This is what Maurice is saying. Rook check to the king. King has to go to h7. By the way, let me just boldly point out the obvious. Don't go to h8 and allow mate in 1 or 2. King h7, and now rook over. Ideas of rook takes f7, as well as knight takes e5. Oh, this is a nice one too. I mean, oops.
He's played it.
Rook a6.
With the pressure on.
Okay.
And it's move 34.
Fabi's not happy looking at this one. Ooh. I did not see rook a6. Again, that's kind of like the poke. You just got alerted to opportunity.
Absolutely.
And that's what we've spoken about in cheating. I mean, I know a lot of people in the internet, they all say, oh, these guys use computers, they like they play all of the first moves. We don't need that. No, we don't even want that. We just want, like, hey, you've got a combination right here.
Like a red light coming on and saying,
exactly.
Do it.
Right.
So how do we do defend? As Maxime Vachier-Lagrave has won his game against Dariusz Schwierz, great result there for MVL, bouncing back from his loss yesterday, putting himself, well, in pole position because we don't think Fabi is going to win.
No.
Fabi's not going to win.
Definitely not.
And with Lanier's draw.
Yeah. So let's go back to the game of Fabi. Fabi down to how much time does he have?
He had 4 minutes when I last checked.
He has 3 minutes and 20 seconds. So how do we defend this?
Exactly. So rook g6, check, and rook f6 is a big deal.
Those are real moves. By the way, king g7 allows rook a7.
Precisely.
No,
king g7.
that is actually death. Right? I don't see how to defend after that.
Well, okay, and do your worst if he just drops back.
Maybe I just put a knight on e4. Knight d2, knight e4, and I don't think you can move.
Knight d2, knight e4, and you don't think there's a move. Just any knight moves allow knight f6 check. This, are we absolutely sure?
No. I don't have an engine.
I don't
have an engine. I'm not sure of anything.
The voice of authority was very impressive there at
You
the
like
start.
that? You like the
yeah.
bluff?
Oh, yeah, baby. That's what good coaches do. They tell their students, don't do this at home.
But this is big trouble, though, isn't it?
Whether or not, it
looks like
it's a
trouble.
two-result game for sure.
Oh, yeah,
whether or not it's winning.
And look at Fabi. He had this posture, put his hands down, brought the hands back up.
But he doesn't have a lot of time to solve
Something's
this.
happening, and he needs to hurry because his clock is ticking down, and this move has reignited the possibilities.
154, Fabi. How many minutes?
Seven.
Because he still has 34 to make.
Seven moves left, and this move.
This is such a challenging moment.
He didn't realize that this could happen.
Right.
And big time now, he's going to have to find all of his world #2 skills to save this position.
Right, because if you look at the position and you just see 3 pawns versus 2 pawns, yes, black's on the back foot. But then you see this move, rook a6, and you go, oh my gosh, this is really severe. I mean, at first, you think, I'm so close that draw, I'm just going to trade some more pawns. Rook a6 just changes completely.
And he keeps shifting his body. You see this?
Right?
This is
That's
a
1
bad
minute
sign.
and
He's going under
1
a minute.
second. Wow, the tension
He just
piling
glanced at the
up.
clock. He just glanced at the clock again. He cannot focus properly on the board because he's feeling the seconds tick away. He's literally feeling them. It's to his right, in his peripheral vision. He's looking to make sure he doesn't lose on time. But it's hard to focus when you're looking at variations and seeing things that lose. Suddenly you start seeing ghosts.
Exactly. Now, again,
37 seconds, guys.
King g7, rook a7. I can't do anything to sacrifice it in exchange. I'm looking at king g7.
How much time does he have? His shoulder's blocking.
Gone.
There it is, 25 and counting.
Oh my God.
He needs a line. He needs some kind of saving move.
That is such, it's so clear he doesn't see it. I don't know if he has one,
Right?
but if it exists, it's not on his radar at the moment.
No, he's really
He's at 10.
struggling.
He's down to single digits.
He's struggling.
His shoulder's blocking us. And finally, he's played rook to d8.
Rook D, wait, what if I
Wait,
take on
5
F7?
seconds
Wait, what
on
if
his
I take
clock.
on F7?
What?
What if rook F7? I'm sorry, what
do
am
you
I
mean,
missing?
rook f7?
The rook's on A6.
This move is a blunder.
yes.
This move loses instantly.
I'm thinking of rook g6 check.
Yep.
Rook G6, king, you have to go to
You
H7.
can't.
There is no choice whatsoever.
Exactly.
And then on rook F6, rook F6 just wins, right?
Yep.
Because king G8, and now I take on F7. That was my whole idea.
That was the whole idea because
Check,
done
and
it.
he's
about to
going
lose.
for it.
And
He's about,
knight-
wow.
And then knight to d2 with a discovered check will pick up the rook
Oh,
on
you don't even have to
like
think
a
about
boss.
it.
Oh.
That's it.
That's it.
That's
a
it. He's
rook.
gonna
That's a full
lose.
piece.
Yeah.
Plenty of pawns to play with still, not even close to simplifying those.
Nope.
That's it.
That's
Jeffrey
it.
Shaw was going to have a huge... You saw that demeanor?
Yes, you saw Fabi just
the
sigh
air just
and say,
went.
"Oh my
Sigh.
goodness,
As he
I'm
said.
going to lose."
Unbelievable.
That's the end. He can't believe it. This is helplessness now. This is the posture he's in. He's no longer focused. He just can't believe it. He's embarrassed for himself. He was so close, and he couldn't figure out what to do. And
Did he
have
a saving grace?
He did. He did. I will discuss it in a second. Let's let
him
us
resign.
play
Because
out this moment as he's what's supposed to do.
Commentators curse where I said these 2,800 guys, they find a way of saving difficult positions. This was a difficult position. Fabi let his time go way down. Didn't find the resource here. He's busted though.
2 seconds, 1 second.
And there goes rook takes d3 and rook takes f7 and he can resign. And has he lost?
No, he lost on time. He lost on time, but it does not matter. He was completely busted. Huge win for Jeffrey Shaw. Loses yesterday to Dariusz Świerc.
Who had lost 3 games
in a row. Last rating of the tournament.
The lowest rated to defeating the highest rated.
Wow. What a
Roller
monster
coaster.
this kid is.
The lowliest of the holiest, right? I mean, one day you feel like just a terrible everything, and the next day the sun is shining. Oh, that is just really a remarkable turnaround.
Extraordinary.
Big shout out to Jeffrey, as he says, look, I'm going to be playing in these U.S. championships in October. Don't think, Fabi, that you're going to have an easy ride to the title.
Easier ride. What a rocky roller coaster it's been for Fabiano Caruana. It's been a tough year, and it's not getting any easier. He had a great start here, +2 score. It seems like the ship was back on its correct route,
right?
And suddenly he loses against Jeffrey, and you got to be feeling for Fabi, like, what is going on? How do I get out of this hole?
He got a second life, by the way, in the game, because knight h4 was killing him the first time.
That's right.
He had a better position. He let that go. Then he was in a lost position. He got a second life, and then he lost it again.
Right.
Bad game, absolutely, for him. But somebody who had a really great game is now sitting with us, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, bouncing back the way Jeffrey did yesterday, had a loss. Maxime, it must have been tough yesterday, getting good sleep. This is exactly what the doctor ordered, though, coming back today.
Well, I mean, I slept, I'm not influenced too much generally by losses. I know that I need to sleep well, so. But of course, yesterday was a very tough game. I mean, Lenier played extremely well. I made a mistake, from my not remembering my files and.
Was Queen E8 in your files?
I mean, like. You're insulting my coach by asking this question.
Just had to,
just checking.
No insult intended.
But anyway, today was also very tough in the beginning because Darius was blitzing moves one after another. But I had this feeling that I had looked at all of this and, I couldn't remember his moves. So like this Queen H4, for instance, came as a surprise. But at least I could sort of remember my moves and find over the board that everything I was doing was sensible, especially this knight d2, knight c4. I think switched the momentum of the game because suddenly the position gets easier to play for me, and for a while it was not the case.
Knight d2, let's bring that on the board. We said today is the Knight's tour because Jeffrey's knight,
I've seen that. You
saw that as well, flew around the board. Your knight started the game on b1. Looked for a moment like it was maybe headed back to b1 when you played knight d2. Of course, it got to the c4 square. You just comfortably gave away your light square bishop back, gave back your light square bishop, I should say, and also sacrificed the pawn. Tell us why you assessed this so easily as it would be good for you.
Well, I knew it wouldn't be bad for starters, and the bishop on b6 suddenly likes squares, like cues. The pawn on f4 turns out to be a weakness in the end, and I got great control over not only the e-file, over the diagonal with the bishop inevitably. So that's why I thought Darius should have played d takes c3 when he had the chance with the bishop on c1. This I was almost certain.
Let's go back to that position. You're saying
yeah,
instead of playing
d8
here.
I mean, or d3. d3 was also I was also looking at quite seriously. Or both with the ideas to hinder my bishop, because once I get this bishop on d2 and I do threaten to take on d4, it suddenly gets very tough.
Maxime, if I may, he played a kind of a counterintuitive move here, c7 takes b6. What was your intentions
Here I want c takes d4.
C takes d4, c5.
Yeah, and now queen takes f4.
Ah, that's simple. Queen takes f4, okay.
Because now the pawn on c... I mean, there has to be a reason for c takes b6.
Right. It was just an extraordinary thing right here at this exact moment. I'm sure queen f4 is advantage for you. The computer has suggested the move a4, and we just give away our grandmaster title.
You're laughing too. Thank goodness you're laughing too.
Yeah.
These kind of moves that don't come to our minds.
This is the computer.
Nothing to say, huh?
Beautiful, right. I mean, if you had looked at this, we were going to ask the security to warn you once again. But
a4 is either a very bad player's move or too great.
Yeah, exactly. One of the two. But now things were definitely going your way. Here you've taken the pawn on a7, which was an excellent move.
I could take on g7, but then knight takes c3.
Yes.
And if rook g4, then my rook is kind of stuck on g4, like queen f6 would always threaten h5, so I should take with the pawn on c3,
right.
king g7, pawn takes d4, pawn takes d4. And of course I'm better, but I thought, you know, it's much more difficult for Darius to play with both my rooks coming to the 7th rank and so on.
You made the right decision, no question about it.
Yeah, and I thought he should play something like rook d6, rook e1 h6, and get his rook to g6, but it is ugly.
Right, something like this, what you're just, this was, in your view, the way he had to struggle.
Or queen f6, but I mean something like
right, right.
But of course, it is pretty bad, but in the game, well, it's a bit unlucky, of course, that this endgame is totally lost after, after e4, rook d3, queen takes f4, because it could happen that you get back this b5 pawn, but you don't because of the back rank mate, so.
Right. So a big comeback for you. You're back in first place. Up and down, down and up.
I mean, I don't count comebacks when it is 1-4 to 1-5, so I will count a comeback if I'm in first place after 1-9.
Okay. Well, I was going to try to project a little bit. You get a rest day to play.
Yeah, that will be nice. Lots of things to do. Maybe some tennis also, and some rest, you know, talking with my coach, having fun with my friends online, that I haven't seen for too long because I've not been to France for so long, but yeah, hanging out and preparing mentally to be very focused for the second half.
All right, we'll let you get to that preparation. Great comeback game, but we know you have more in you. Congratulations.
Thank you. Congratulations, Envia. Really, really nice stuff.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's phenomenal. No, I mean, it's so hard. Derek's preparation was so great, and to come back and win that kind of game. And our current standings, Alejandro, please.
It's 3 people at the top, but they keep changing. Now it's Wesley So, Lenier Dominguez, and Maxime Vachier-Lagrave with 3.5 points. It's actually Fabiano Caruana that is on the outside looking in. He has 3 points, and it's Jeffrey surging. He's reached 50%, catching Shakir Mamedyarov and Richard Rapport. Meanwhile, Sam Shankland stays on -1, and Darius Wirtz and Peter Spidler round off the tournament with -3.
I love watching these top players leapfrog one another. But we have a very special young man in studio.
He has defeated world number 2, Fabiano Caruana. We have with us Jeffrey Xiong.
JX in the building after a big comeback win. Jeffrey, before we get to this game, how does it feel to have lost to the lowest rated player who was playing poorly and then bounce back and be the number 2 player on the planet?
Yeah, it's a bit of a shock for me, to be honest, because I had a very bad feeling after yesterday. And coming into today, to be honest, I didn't have much ambition. So, you know, I didn't prepare too much, just played knight f3, g3 and see what happens. And yeah, I mean, I feel very lucky because, especially considering how the opening went, I felt I didn't really have any, I didn't really deserve to win.
He did seem like he came after you, all guns blazing. Let's take a look on the screen at this position. When he played the move a5, did you feel like, okay, the guy thinks he's got to beat me, even with the black pieces?
No, I think he was actually just playing what he thought was objectively best. I think the a5, a4 inclusion, I feel like is good for black in general. So I tried to improvise with bishop g5, knight c1, but I think it's not a very good idea because, yeah, in the game, I think it's already just worse for me.
And yeah, this position was supposed to be not so great. You had to play bishop f3. That must have been not a move you wanted to do.
Yeah, bishop f3 to set up knight g4. The good thing is it's a very bad bishop, so I want to trade it with bishop g4. So maybe it's not such a useless move. But yeah, I think the critical mistake from him was when he played g5, because I think it just really wasn't necessary, and it created kind of a hook for me later when I played h4.
But were you surprised by his decision to play the move bishop e6, given that he had this bishop, sort of good bishop, that he didn't have to give up?
Yeah, that's a fair point, but I think I wasn't actually that surprised. Yeah, he can definitely keep the bishops, but like I said, if instead of g5, if he just castles, I think it's a very pleasant position for black. He just wants to play like rook c8, knight e7, and eventually I'm going to have to play very passively to hold the c2 pawn.
Later, this knight of yours that went all the way to c1 made this march all the way to d5. That must have given you some comfort when you put the knight on d5. Were you shocked by his choice of knight to d8?
Yeah, that I was definitely... Well, not at first. I mean, it made sense that he wants to bring to d6, but when I saw knight b4 was available, then I was wondering what he had prepared there. Because, yeah, once the knight lands on d5, it seems very dangerous for him.
You then traded on g5, and in this moment, we had a possible move. If you took on b5 here, but I'm going to prod you and say you have a winning move right now. Were you told before, or do you?
I mean, my first instinct was probably knight takes d4, but I couldn't make that one work. So.
That was my first instinct as well, Jeffrey. As it turns out.
Ooh! Wow.
Ooh.
That's very nice. Yeah,
ooh.
Wow.
Yeah, that was the move that you've missed. It's a gorgeous move. We would have called security on you.
No, stop it. You could see moves like that.
Right.
Knight h4 was winning on the spot, it turns out.
Mm-hmm. Somehow you got yourself to this position. Did you realize how strong a move rook a6 was?
Not at first, but yeah, once I figured out rook af1, rook d8 was fine for him, I needed to look for something else.
Right.
And yeah, I always have ideas of, you know, knight d2, knight e4, but right. I think rook a6 is just a great inclusion because, like, maybe the idea is to provoke king g7, rook a7. Mm-hmm. He has to go king g8 back, and now knight d2 is already very powerful.
That was exactly what Alejandro thought as well, that this would end up freezing you completely.
However, we can back up because there was something that you'd asked me the question that the engine did spot after rook a6, and that is rook takes d3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were discussing this line. So rook g6, king h7, rook f6.
And then e4.
Yeah. I think he probably felt that this was enough for a draw, but under time pressure he couldn't work it out. So I think we were saying rook f7, knight g5.
Rook f7 check, rook f7, knight g5.
And then you might have to be precise with where you put. Probably g7 makes the most sense.
G7?
Just to avoid, because I don't think I'd take with rook, right?
Right.
So yeah, once I take with a knight, there aren't any checks. And then yeah, I guess you can just go e3.
E3.
Wow. Temporary sham sacrifice of piece. Some nice things. Jeffrey, congratulations. Seriously, that was a very big scalp. And what are you going to do on your rest day?
I think the idea was to watch Moneyball. So I will watch that maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow. But
who came up with that idea?
It was, yeah, I saw this movie was available on Netflix, and then I wanted to find a good time to watch it, and I made it, I decided the best time was maybe tonight, so.
During the Sinquefield Cup.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Well, congratulations, Jeffrey. Huge result there. What a shakeup in the standings.
Thank you. Yes.
Absolutely fantastic.
Really good stuff. And we've got a second half. Such an eventful first half. Maybe, well, let's be fair. The rounds 3 and 4 were so spectacular. Edge of our seat. But this round,
pretty good, not bad. I think during a normal Sinquefield would be satisfied.
I wanted to say MVL, the way he handled his business against the great preparation of Darek was something to behold. I thought
Absolutely
that was just
spectacular.
Off the chart. Maurice, please.
Another great round. Another great round. We saw some chess that wasn't really fighting chess. Unfortunately, Wesley said he didn't feel great, so he didn't fight out his game. Shakhriyar made a run of it to try to win his. For sure, Sam and Peter, they just couldn't quite figure out how to get that going. But these last 2 games with the Night Tours, gotta love it. Gotta love it. The youngster taking down Fabiano Caruana, MVL making his comeback after a loss. Still lots of excitement happening here. Glad to have a rest day, I'll tell you that.
Right.
But it's going to be good going to round 6 as we still have not separated the leaders. I don't think we've ever, in the history of the Sinquefield Cup, I can say this with certainty, had 3 players at +2 going into the rest day.
But we did have 3 players with +2 at the end of the tournament. Let's see if they can keep that one up. Of course, we are on a rest day tomorrow, so don't tune in. Tune in the day after as we return with round 6 of the Sinquefield Cup. We'll be here to cover all of the action. Thank you.
See you on Monday. Or Sunday. On Monday.
This has been a presentation of the St. Louis Chess Club. Any reproduction or distribution of this content without the express written consent of the St. Louis Chess Club is prohibited.